Hello everybody and welcome to beautiful Virginia International Raceway just outside Danville, Virginia. I'm John Hindorf. Alongside me in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre is Ryan Marine. Here's what we've got in store for you today. 2 hours and 40 minutes of some of the best tarmac in world racing. Brilliant stuff. 3¼ miles or just above, 18 corners-ish, probably a couple more than that. Turn 1, the Horseshoe, has been our ultimate action area today. You'd have made quite a lot of money if you'd been on tow truck duty down there this weekend already. Up the hill towards the old oak tree, turns 11 and 12, threading your way through the Snake and through the South Bend, maximum commitment there. Then down Madison Avenue, the back straight towards the roller coaster here at the top of the hill, and then the hog pen at turn 17. It's a beautiful day in terms of the weather. Maybe a little warm actually. 88 Fahrenheit is 31 in the air. That's lovely for us watching. But inside the cockpit of these cars, all GTDs of course in the Michelin GT Challenge here at VIR. Add 10 degrees at least to that Celsius, so it's going to be well up over 120 Fahrenheit in the cars. On the track, it's 113 and climbing. That's 46 Celsius. This is as hot as we've seen it all weekend. We got up to, I think, 47 or 48. This whole weekend at just after, 7 minutes past midday here, Eastern Daylight Time. It's only going to get hotter on the track. So does that mean that it's a fuel race or a tyre race? Ryan Marine, one of our Porsche keys to the race. Tyres or fuel in this heat? 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's not an easy run from green flag to checker here.
No, far from it. Tire wear has been a storyline in the Support Series races up to this point. I think if you ask the 23 cars and teams in this field if it's going to be a tire or fuel race, you might get 23 different answers. We're not really sure just yet, but we'll find out together here over the next 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Let's have a look at the other side of the tyres and grip, because the other side of the tyres and grip is how you stop the cars. Brembo and Michelin work together as partners to all of these teams. The Brembo technicians tell us that on their algorithms, this is a difficulty 4 out of 5 racetrack. The toughest braking point is at turn 1 at the Horseshoe. You might realise that. 7 braking zones per lap. And as you come down to turn 1, you are decelerating at a rate of 2.2 G. So everything, the car and you, if you are driving the car, is twice as heavy, feels twice as heavy than it is. That's 105 miles an hour that they are scrubbing off, by the way. 1,292 Fahrenheit is 700 Celsius. I'm just pausing there for a moment to let that sink in. Your oven does not go up anywhere near that. I think my oven goes up to 280, maybe 300 Celsius. So it's as much, more than half as much again. Those are your Brembo brake facts. We'll remind you of those later on in the race. We've got drama before we even get to the green flag, Ryan Marine, as Max Esterson for RLL Team McLaren, who qualified in a most creditable 4th position for that bright orange machine, has stopped on circuit. Now, has he got going again? That was going up the Snake. I think he is moving again. He might actually be able to get his position back.
It depends on at what stage in the lap. He is trying to get that position back here, and it looks like that's been cleared by race control, so crisis averted at least momentarily, but that's going to plant the seed of doubt in the minds of team and driver alike. Is that a one-off issue, or is that something that could rear its ugly head again?
It was a software issue, and the three-fingered salute. We're here from Arjuna Kankapati, our driver database informed pit lane reporter who's spoken to RLL. It was a full Control-Alt-Delete by the young driver who kept his cool there. No harm, no foul at the moment. 2 hours and 40 minutes on the clock. Stand by for action. Michelin GT Challenge at VIR for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as we're in the clutch part of the season. And the green flag is ready. It is in the air and we go, and the Lamborghini drops the back end down as the power from that Lambo engine shoved it forward. It looked like it'd been shot out of a steam catapult there. That was extraordinary as the back of that car was pushed towards the Virginia tarmac, and Andrea Caldarelli has scooted away. Nicky Katzberg just about holding on to second in the bright yellow number 4 Corvette, but he's under pressure from Neil Verhagen, and I think it's the Ford that's come through for 4th place. That's Dennis Olsen, who's come up from 6th position. That's a great start from the Ford GT3 Mustang driver. That's outstanding heads-up driving, and already more troubles in the early part of the lap for a car that's been off track a number of times this weekend. Sheena Monk and Maya Riley Motorsports, and Corvette off. That's a big one. That's a huge one. This will be a full course yellow, and that's Alexander Sims going up the hill at full speed, cold tyres, and just on a minute into the race, the car is pitched up into the air and comes down partially on the tyre barrier. Alex has already opened the door. He's not a happy bunny in there. Alexander is fine. He extricates himself from the car. I suggest that was side-by-side contact, but we'll see what happens there. Sheena Monk, by the way, did regain the tarmac. Alexander walks away with nary a backward glance to that Pratt Miller Corvette, and that is the better placed of the Corvettes in the championship this year. My goodness me, that is... actually, no, I'm mistaken. The 4 is the better place of the Corvettes in the championship this year. But that is a very, very big incident and underlines, as if we didn't know it, just how strong these GT3 cars are. Can I just also say that the AMR safety crew were on the site so quickly. It was side by side with Harry King going up through the first part of the snake, and then Alex got onto the inside curb. Now, there was contact before Alexander went off, but I don't think it was the contact that put him off. No, it wasn't. There was clear air between them before he took the curb on the inside that unsettled the car. Now, race control, again, will be in the spotlight here, and I don't say that in any other way to see, other than the fact that that is truth. There's been a lot of chatter, enough that race control met the press earlier this week to explain some of their thinking and how they will continue going forward. Ryan Marine, it's not our call, but how did you see that one?
It was very close, certainly, between the two, and as you mentioned, there had been some contact prior to the incident itself. Now, one thing that came up in that meeting with the press and race control was the fact that racing room, it needs to be given. That is an expectation from race control, and they did not feel like that happened with regularity at Road America, and that was the root cause of some of the problems. Now, we'll let them sort that out, but in the meantime, the pole-sitting GTD car from Dragon Speed is in the pits. This is 2 Corvettes from 2 different classes, both in strife here early on. Another look at what happened between the Porsche and the Corvette in this incident, and man, that was a big impact, but the tire barriers there absorbing a lot of that energy, doing exactly what they were placed there to do.
I don't think you can call that. I think that is the absolute definition of incidental contact. It's the first lap of the race, you're going side by side, and your tyres are not up to temperature. It doesn't matter what I think, but I'm paid to have an opinion, so I'm going to give it. I think that's the definition of incidental contact. We've seen what some would say was more egregious contact than that, called as incidental. We've also seen drivers banging against each other going down straight parts of the track, not being called at all. And I'm not sure how you call that one, but It seemed to me that the contact was over before the Corvette got loose on the curb. That is a place where it's difficult to go side by side. Let's go down to the pit lane as the Dragon Speed car came into a closed pit at the start of the race. We're going to split the classes back up and put them back into GTD Pro and GTD. Our junior counterparty is our driver database informed pit lane reporter. The pole-sitting Dragon Speed car in the pits. Any suggestion of what the problem is there? They look to be having a good gander at the front left of that car.
Yeah, I just got down to the pit stall. I was going to pop my head in and ask the team, but I'm just keeping an eye on the mechanic working on the left front, John. Let me see if I can get you an answer. I'll get back to you.
Thanks, man. Our junior counterparty down there. Andrea Caldarelli with a fantastic start from the Lamborghini Temerario. Right, let's put aside the investigation. The good news is that Alexander Sims walked away under his own volition from what was a very scary and very high-speed incident. Corvette going up into the air, coming down on the tyre barriers doing exactly what they were meant to do and dissipating the energy, mitigating the deceleration of that, what are there, 1,200 kilos of GT3 car, thereabouts, maybe a little bit more. Let's go back to Arjuna, who has an update for us on that Dragon Speed Ferrari. Excuse me, Dragon Speed Corvette.
Go back 12 months ago, you wouldn't be wrong, John. Dejection in the pit lane here from Dragon Speed. Contact with the Conquest Racing Ferrari, and I suspect that that wasn't at turn 1 if they're looking at the left front. Likely to be a little bit further down through the lap. Maybe turn 4 in the opening sector was the word from the team. But this is just more heartbreak for a team that's been through the ringer in 2026. And as much as they are leaving IMSA competition at the end of the year, John, the team has said they've got some exciting plans still in the works. So it's looking forward to seeing what Alton, Julian and the team have got in store for 2027.
It is Lorenzo Petresi in that silver, blue and black number 34 of Conquest Racing that leads in GTD from Danny Formal and Patrick Gallagher for Win Taylor Lamborghini and Turner Motorsport respectively. Dennis Olsen just cruising past the scene of the accident and have a really good look to his left hand side. He's trying to cool himself down in the car, has his right hand over the air blower, trying to cool down his palms on his right hand. Had a good look at that incident. And now that Dragon Speed car's gone behind the wall, I suspect that's suspension or steering arm damage down there. Now the good news is they're not losing as many laps as if we were green. The bad news is they are losing laps. End of the race, Ryan, for the number 3 Pratt Miller Chevy Corvette. And a very, very big incident indeed.
Yeah, it was violent, no question. Really happy to see Alexander walk away. That's the defending class champion, remember. Alexander Sims and Antonio Garcia took the GTD Pro title 1 year ago, and this, I think, effectively spells the end of their bid to go back-to-back. They came into the weekend 6th and over 100 points out, which in and of itself probably wasn't enough to panic, but they were 6th, so they had 5 crews they had to try and overcome. Wasn't the best qualifying effort for Alexander yesterday, so I think he was pretty aggressive on the start, as were several others trying to make up positions while they could. But that was obviously not the end result they were looking for, and then consequently there was, yeah, that was a big hit, and a big hit for their title hopes as well.
Valentin Asclot giving Neil Verhagen a bit of a love tap in those early skirmishes as well, and running alongside Max Esterson in the RLL McLaren, and contact there as well. And there's the problem that race control has. Is any of that more or less punishable than what we just saw? The best view of that we've seen so far was from Jack Hawksworth's car and the roof cam on the Lexus RCF GT, and it would appear from that angle that we saw that whilst there was some side-to-side contact beforehand between the green Porsche and the yellow Corvette, what precipitated the Corvette getting into the Porsche was the fact that it hit the curb on the left-hand side and that flicked it offline into the back and the side of the Porsche. Now that's the decision that race control have to make, and that's why I say always, and I say this with much respect for those in race control, that's why I never want to have to be in race control. There's a panel of people there that have to do this, and there's driver advisors as well. And they have to make that decision with the information that they have right now. Now, all of the cars do carry an onboard camera, not necessarily a broadcast onboard camera, but a camera for adjudication. But of course, you can't access that right now. That will be looked at the end of the race. And one of the things, Ryan, that was said in that meeting earlier this week was harking back to the number 31 Cadillac hitting Simon Mann's Ferrari at Watkins Glen was, at the end of the race, when race control looked at the onboard camera, they realised there had been significant contact there, but that was at the end of the race. And this is the sort of thing that makes the guys look at effectively the procedures that they use. And fair play to IMSA for putting those guys up there to be grilled, and they were grilled by the press that was there, and there was some uncomfortable moments there. It was quite brusque at times.
Yes, absolutely. There were pointed questions, which I think was merited by the circumstances coming off of what happened at Road America, where by their own admission, IMSA and their race control team weren't pleased with the conduct of some of the drivers on the track, and that's something they're trying to curtail by sending clear messages with penalties and so forth. But the thing to remember when we're assessing this is we've seen effectively one angle of the crash. As you talked about, other cars will have non-broadcast onboard cameras. That footage can sometimes be used. There's other closed-circuit cameras and things like that around the track that give the race control team additional information to go off of. They also have the telemetry to look at that we don't. So that's why I'm hesitant to weigh in with an opinion one way or the other. But, race control has all of the resources at their disposal to make the right call. And again, let's remember that they're trying to send a message right now based off of the behavior, not just at Road America, but the Watkins Glen weekend had elements of this as well. So that this is being closely monitored to make sure that this is the type of racing that IMSA wants to foster.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely agree. And as I say, it would not be my first, second or third choice for jobs to do at a race track, to be honest. Let's use the opportunity to have a chat with some drivers down in the pit lane. Our pit lane reporter, informed by driver database, is our junior counterparty. He's got Connor De Filippi.
That was contact in free practice 1, Neil Verhagen into the wall, but Paul Miller Racing did a great job to send the car back out there, get some data, and then Neil did a great job in qualifying. Would have been second, but the fastest lap being removed sent him down to third. Connor, been an up and down weekend, but with things so tight in terms of the points, how do you feel you and the Paul Miller team have been able to bounce back from that adversity?
I mean, we feel like we've done everything we can as a championship-winning team. So these guys never stop. Neil's obviously, an elite driver and one of the best in the business. So I think getting them back out there, end of FP1, was the perfect scenario to mentally just kind of shake it off and focus on the next session. So we all did that, and we knew it was plenty left in the weekend to focus on. So thankfully, the car was in fixable condition, and he did a great job yesterday. And now we just got to run a clean race and maximize what we have.
Seemed like an interesting start. Has Neil reported anything that happened on the opening couple of corners?
Yeah, we had a little contact from the 68 Aston, hit us from behind, but overall I think the car's in okay shape. we don't see like there's nothing hanging off at the moment. So hopefully no issues kind of start to grow from that later on. But overall, yeah, it was a clean start. We had a good start through one. He left some racing room and allowed the Ford and the Corvette to come back by us in 3. But it's a long race and it was the right decision. So we just got to keep our nose clean and be there at the end.
I know drivers like to leave the strategy to the engineers, but is this going to impact things at all, potentially a little bit lengthy of a caution to start things off?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for everybody. I think when it's early like this, there's not a lot you can do. It's unless there's another one later in the race, if it potentially turns it into one stop if the guys in the back try to go super risky. But traditionally, this is a pretty low caution race. So hopefully we get this one out of the way and we can put on a good show for the rest of the race.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
That incident between Connor's car, the number 1, and the number 68 Aston Martin, so the BMW and Aston Martin, is under review. So we'll keep you up to date with that. It's going to be a little while yet. The clock continues to count down. The pits will not open for general for the general populace, as it was, for normal service here, because we were so close to the start of the race. We've also had a warning, by the way, for the number 68 Car Blanche Aston Martin, Valentin Asclot. Not for that contact, but again for the control powertrain parameters. We were explained how Dudu Barrichello, in another Aston Martin, lost his 3rd and 5th laps in qualifying, Ryan, because of that. And this is a real-time live monitoring system that looks at the power output of all of these GT3 cars, GTD cars. In the old days, we used to talk about how much power the engine made, what was going into it in terms of air and fuel mix. Nowadays, whilst we still do that and use that for the balance of performance, it's controlled by what's coming out at the drive shaft area before the back wheels.
Yeah, and that's measured in real time, as you say, by a torque sensor. And at the risk of getting out ahead of my skis slightly here, getting into the technical aspects of this, what that is monitoring is the power output to make sure that it doesn't exceed the what's permitted in the balance of performance. Now, from what drivers have told me, things like a curb strike, for instance, can create a false spike in some of that data, and that has to be managed inside the cockpit. And drivers actually are looking at this in real time to make sure that their energy usage and that their power delivery doesn't exceed what is permitted, and that's something they have to adjust to sometimes in real time if they get one of those spikes, if they go up and over a curb too much or something of that nature.
Let's go down to Arjuna in the pit lane.
Alex Sims checked by the medical team. Alex, first off, are you okay?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
I know you haven't had a chance to watch the incident, but what were your thoughts from behind the wheel as things unfolded on the opening lap?
It was just a tight situation going up through the S's, and yeah, now reflecting on it, you realize that it's not a situation you ever practice, you know. And you're faced with that on lap 1 on colder tires, and I went over the crest through the right-hander, I guess turn 7, turn 8. It's all those S's sort of merge into one in terms of corner numbers. But yeah, I could see there was a curb. Harry was on my right. There wasn't a ton of room, and at some point, you know, in whatever it is, 0.5 of a second, you've got to make a decision. Is he going to make the room for me or not? And I tried to take it into my own hands and cut the curb a bit. Honestly, I can't tell you now whether there was any contact at all, whether he pinched me, whether it was all down to me and the car bottoming after the curb strike or what. I don't know, honestly. I'm not going to point any fingers at anyone else. It was just an unfortunate situation. And yeah, well, once the car came down and whether it was the car hitting the floor or with another car, I don't know, and then lost control, so yeah.
Thanks, Alex. Glad to see you're okay and appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, what a very honest assimilation of what has gone on there from Alex Sims. Worth taking that as we came back to green flag. More side-by-side racing as Dennis Alton and Nicky Katzberg are going at it for second place through the right hook, and Katzberg takes the remaining Corvette up into second place ahead of the number 64 Ford. Andrea Caldarelli got another good start and has pulled out the better part of a second here with 2 hours and 20 minutes to go. Fair play as well to our track services who have got that tyre wall back together. Mustang moving forward is Frederick Vervish and Jack Hawksworth going at it further back down the GT run. Looks also as though Casper Stevenson has come back out on to the pit lane, and in fact he's back on the track now with the number 81 Dragon Speed car. And here is race control. This is no action necessary for Alex Sims and Harry King. However, there is a penalty for Conquest Racing and the number 81 Dragon Speed car. Very interesting indeed. And Dragon Speed are going to have to come back in. In fact, they are back in now because they took more than emergency service in a closed pit. And that'll be a stop plus 60, rather rubbing salt into the wounds there as well. Sorry, that's the 34, Lorenzo Patrese coming in to service his drive-through. Alex Sims could not have known what race control were going to call that. Very fair of him to call it the way he did, but that's the way I saw it as well. I'll be absolutely honest, and I was prepared to say that, Ryan, but you've got to give credit to Alexander Sims for the way he spoke to Arjuna there.
Well, very cerebral driver on and off the track, and you really heard that in the interview. He spent time as a driver steward the last couple of years in Formula E as well, so he's seen it from both sides of that equation. Really interesting, though, to get his feedback on it, and it basically meshes with what race control saw there as well. One other race control message to pass along. We saw the contact between Valentin Hasseklo and Neil Verhagen. That was noticed, and a warning was issued to Valentin Hasseklo for that, but no further action beyond the warning.
I always wonder about that, because in that meeting on Thursday, the three wise men that were there basically said that every incident is taken as an individual, and they don't think about anything else. So you've given a warning there to Valentin Hasseklo, and we might have said that was a bit like a yellow card in soccer, but it clearly isn't, because it's wiped clean for the next time. So it's not even like saying we're watching you there, or is it? And I kind of don't understand. That's now a bit that I don't understand.
Well, that wasn't something that was brought up specifically in that meeting, at least not that I heard, so I can't weigh in on it specifically, but I do think it's probably worth sending the message to the driver. Hey, we saw that.
Totally agree.
It was on the edge. It didn't cross the line, but you've walked right up to the line, so maybe it's about telling the driver where the line is, and they can adjust their driving.
Yeah, I like that.
Commensurate with that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to look at it. Right, let's get settled back into this race. 2 hours and 16 minutes and a few seconds still to run. Andrea Caldarelli on the starts and the restarts has been able to control the front of the field. He crossed the line with a new fastest lap of 1:46.686 at 1.2 seconds ahead, as the Dragon Speed car is now serving that stop and 60-second hold. Casper Stevenson in there. That was for more, considerably more than emergency service. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do in the pits when you've got a broken steering arm other than go behind the wall and fix it, unless they put fuel in it as well, which is actually wouldn't have been allowed. I suspect if they just fixed the suspension, that would have been okay. Leo Jordan says, refreshing to hear a driver talk and act like that. Fair play to Alexander Sims at IMSA Radio. And, thank you to Grant Westman. He's just seen the Dragon Speed vet come back in as well at the track side. Those of you at the track side or further afield, RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels around the world this weekend. This race is not the end of our racing coverage from VIR. Shea Adam comes in to do the glory laps. Shea from Mazda will be calling the Whelen MX-5 Cup after our Michelin pilot, after our Michelin post-race tech. That needs to be slightly truncated after this race, so let's hope there are not too many other talking points and we can just talk about some of the championship implications, point standings, and get some driver reaction before we finish up our weekend here at the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR. Danny Formal now leading in GTD after the drive-through for Lorenzo Patrese. He's dropped 30 seconds back from the lead and sits in 12th position. Patrick Gallagher for Turner Motorsport in second place. We'll do the first of our VP Racing updates in about 5 minutes time. Meantime, Harry King, 7th position, looking at the back of Max Esterson, who was bumped down a little bit in those early skirmishes. Another great qualifying performance from young Max Esterson in that RLL McLaren.
Yeah, he was phenomenal in that qualifying, and that team seems to be rounding into form. Got used up a little bit on the start, qualified 4th and dropped down to 6th, where he runs right now, and has fallen into the clutches of Harry King in recent laps. But still, strong run here for them, and they just like to have a nice clean day. Hopefully that moment on the formation lap was not a sign of anything more significant, where that car briefly lost some pace. Real quick, just wanted to follow up on the Dragon Speed thing. You were wondering if they had refueled as part of the emergency service, and that's why they got that penalty, and the answer is yes, because they actually had 2 drive-through penalties. One was for refueling while on stands, and then the other was for more than emergency service in a closed pit. So that answers the question.
There you go. That's nicely worked out, Detective Marine. Well done. Using the available information to fill my knowledge gap. I appreciate it very much indeed. The number 45 Dex Imaging Lamborghini running a very patriotic Stars and Stripes livery here at VIR, chasing down at the moment, looking at the back of Jack Hawksworth, and that is the leader in the GTD category. Looking at the back of the field in the GTD Pro, it has not been a banner weekend for the Lexus, either of them. They've just struggled for pace in the longer runs, Ryan.
Yeah, we saw that in practice, that especially in practice 1, neither car was particularly strong. One of the 2 made a step forward in practice 2. They actually qualified all right, and Aaron Tewitt sits 4th in GTD at the moment, but Jack Hawksworth has moved backwards here since the start of this race. I say qualified all right. I mean, it was relative to the GT field as a whole. It was kind of right in the middle of that, but it was 10th in the class, and finds himself 9th, I suppose, at the moment, but at the back of the class, with the exception of the Alexander Sims car that's out of the picture right now. So all of this to say, it's been a bit of a head-scratcher for Vassar Sullivan up to this point, but the pendulum has swung back the other way. Really, it had been the Pro car that had shown some signs early in the weekend in practice 2, but now it's actually the Aaron Tewitt-driven GTD car that is the better placed in their respective class.
It's Ryan Moraine alongside me, John Hindhaugh, in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre. Coming down to around about half an hour of racing, interrupted by that lengthy yellow flag for Alexander Sims hitting the wall, going up through the snake. Big, high energy, high speed impact there. The Corvette holding up very well indeed, to the point where, despite being partially on its side, Alexander was able to open the door and get out. Let's take our first VP Racing in-race update. We'll start with the GTD Pro class at the front of the field. FAF Motorsport by nearly a second and a half now. The Temerario under Andrea Caldarelli's auspices leads out that number 9 car. In second, it is the remaining Nicky Katzberg-driven number 4 Corvette. He's got about 2 seconds on Ford Racing's Dennis Olsen in the Mustang GT3. It's the number 64 car. Neil Verhagen, Paul Miller racing the number 1 car, going through now across the start-finish line. He's another 1.8 seconds further back. He's got half a second on Valentin Asclaux for Car Blanche and the Aston Martin number 68. Max Esterson recovering from getting used up. What a great turn of phrase that was by Ryan Marine at the start of the race. 1:47.801 is that car, and Max's best lap last time around. He's in 6th position, 8/10 of a second ahead of the bright green Ewell Racing Porsche number 77. Half a second further back, Frederick Vervish for Ford Racing, and the remaining GTD Pro cars, Jack Hawksworth, who's another 8/10 further back. He's got Danny Formal right behind him. He leads GTD for Wintiller Racing. Lamborghinis heading both classes at the moment, both fastest laps as well. Danny's got 2.6 seconds on Turner Motorsport's Patrick Gallagher in the BMW number 96. The green and yellow car has half a second on Russell Ward. Winwood Racing, Russell doing a great job of avoiding some of that carnage earlier on, as did all the GTD drivers actually. Dudu Barrichello's worked his way up to 4th position in the number 27 Hartner Racing Aston. That's been a good opening stanza for Dudu in his championship chase. In 5th position in GTD, Aaron Taylor to Vassar Sullivan's RCF GT. He's another half a second behind Dudu. Mason Faliki makes up the top 6 for Chevrolet Corvette and DXDT in the 36 car. Jake Walker for Gradient Racing is next up in the silver number 66 Mustang. And the top 10's made up by Inception's Brendan Arib in the number 7 yellow Ferrari, and the Chevy Corvette at 13 Autosports behind him, but some distance back. The top 10 made up by Adam Adelson. Robbie Foley, Patrick Gallagher ahead of Philip Ellis and Russell Ward by 14 points as they stand. Dudu Barrichello another 6 further back, and then 60 further back, Benjamin Pedersen and Aaron Telix in the GTD category. Closest you like on the track and in the championship. Ryan Marine boiling up nicely for the last 2.5 races, nearly 3 races of the season.
It had been on a simmer, but I think you're right, maybe up to a boil now as Barrichello takes a peek up the inside of Russell Ward there, but can't quite get alongside to complete the pass. Fascinating that the top 4 in the GTT Championship run nose to tail right now on the racetrack, right? We've got championship leader Barrichello 4th. 3rd place is Ward, just ahead of him. 2nd place, just ahead of Ward, is the Turner car that's 3rd in the championship. And then 4th place in the title fight is 5th on track, right behind this battle. So they've all found themselves here. Every position swapped amongst that quartet is crucial in terms of determining championship order going into the final couple of races.
It's Ryan Marine here in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre. Max Esterson, what a find he has been. Burst onto the scene last October when he slotted into the JDC Porsche 963 and did I think it was a triple stint, wasn't it, at the start of Motul Petit Le Mans. Announced his entry into the sports car racing world in some style, picked up by RLL Team McLaren for the full season this year as RLL came back into the GTD ranks. You've got to say that those 2 young drivers, and indeed the team themselves, we've talked about this in the early part of the week, but I appreciate, Ryan, that there are people who are joining us just for the race in sound and vision this weekend. RLL, class act, lose the BMW, or come to the end of their BMW run, pick up another manufacturer, grab a couple of young drivers and say, right, let's see what we can make of this. And what they've made of this is actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, if you just look at the standings, it really doesn't tell the full story, because I think they've been remarkably on the pace, given the lack of experience that the team has with the car, that the drivers have with the team and the car, and with this style of racing, frankly. Both are open wheel exports, although Nikita Johnson's still busy driving in Indy Next this season and is 1 point out of the championship lead, just behind Enzo Fittipaldi, also an IMSA driver because he did the Rolex 24 earlier this season in LMP2, driving alongside his brother Pietro. But Nikita's been awesome across both programs this year. You kind of talked about what Estrason's done. He's completely changed his focus from single-seaters to sports car racing. And the thing that is maybe forgotten is how late that program came together. It was really announced in the 11th hour and a bit of a scramble to get everything on site for the Roar Before the 24 back in January. But they turned up. They were right on the pace, starting with that first race. Had a few technical gremlins there down in Daytona and didn't get a great result. And unfortunately, that set the tone for the rest of the season. And as I've said a number of times this weekend, I just hope over the final 3 races they have a clean run from start of the weekend to the end where they can finally showcase their speed and get the result that they deserve.
You just wonder, don't you, where this talent, this young talent, how much more of it we can squeeze in to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. This has become a place for young drivers to develop their careers, and the thought of sports car racing has changed quite a lot down through the years. It doesn't seem so long ago when I used to get people saying to me, yeah, that's where drivers go when they're ending their career. I never thought that was the case, if I'm brutally honest, and there's been some hellishly good sports car drivers down through the years who made that decision early or found themselves in that position who hadn't had the breaks in single-seater racing. But it does seem to be a much more, I'll say, fashionable choice for young drivers as well. Let's get back to the battles, and here comes the AMG, and this is a battle for position. Russell Ward and Dudu Barrichello down Madison Avenue, the back straight. Russell Ward will get the advantage of the inside line into the kink at turn 13, but Dudu will have the line into 14. Who gives way? Neither of them. They went through that first part side by side. Quality stuff from these two hard charges. And Russell Ward, last couple of seasons driving as well, if not better than he ever has. He more than holds his own often against the pro drivers. Russell and the whole team, in fact, barely been a decade, hasn't it, since Wimwood came into existence, and now with the dual operation here in the States and over in Europe as well, running AMG and DTM, ran Max Verstappen at the Nürburgring this year, and were running 1 and 2 when Verstappen's car broke, but they still managed to win the ADAC 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. Huge result for them. Front of the field then, Aston Martin Racing in behind. Patrick Gallagher in second, third and fourth with Danny Formal 6 seconds up the road from this battle for second on down, Ryan.
I don't know how much longer he would be 6 seconds ahead if Barrichello could get by Gallagher. This drive has been phenomenal from Eduardo Barrichello, who started 11th, let's remember. All that time we spent talking in our countdown to green about how important track position is looking a little bit ridiculous at the moment because of the way that Barrichello's been able to drive his way through the field. We had that stat that no one had won a race here at VIR since 2022, since before 2022, from starting outside of the top 4 positions. Well, Barrichello might be challenging that coming from the back, effectively, of the grid if he can continue on this roll.
Sitting second in GTD, Turner Motorsports, Robbie Foley about to get the helmet on. It's been a good start to this race from Patrick Gallagher. Has he said anything on the radio about how the car's been handling?
I think the same for everybody, just about tire management. He's trying to manage the tires well. He got a good start. And yeah, just avoided all the chaos, basically. So we'll see how it plays out. And as the track gets a bit warmer, it's going to be hard on the tires. I
saw you were just talking with Will Turner, keeping an eye on the competition. Who are you fighting here today? Who's your main rival?
Obviously, everybody in the championship hunt, 27, 57, and the 12, which we're all kind of nose to tail. So pretty exciting for everybody watching, and we'll try to put on a good show. Thanks, best of luck. Thanks.
Short and sweet from Robbie there. He's about to get into the car, so that tells you something. 2 hours of this race remains. Now, is that down to driver time in terms of how that's playing into the strategic thoughts of these teams at the front of the field, Ryan?
It's part of it, yeah. We're almost to the point where minimum drive time has elapsed. 45 minutes will get the job done on that, so that's 5 minutes away from this point right here. If Arjuna's truth serum was working in our pre-race coverage and what the drivers were telling us, where you can make it close to an hour on a virtual energy tank, then we're at the point where you could make it on one more stop from this point right now. Now, no one would do that if they were planning on making a driver change here, because we've not done minimum drive time, but I would think that, especially given what Turner did in the Pilot Challenge race yesterday, using the undercut strategy, short pitting effectively as soon as the window opens, that worked really well for them in their GT4 car. Maybe when the drive time is up, they or someone else might take the gamble and try and pull the same strategy here today.
3 laps before Robbie gets in the car. That was the sign from Will to Robbie as he finished his chat with Arjuna. So that gives us a little bit of an idea, Ryan, of what might be happening.
Yeah, that would be 2 laps now from now, and effectively that gets us past the 45-minute mark. So I think that answers your question. Drive time is the first box that needs to get checked. That will be checked off here in just over 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Then we start to think about how we can make the fuel stops fit from there, plus the tire management that Robbie talked about.
That was one of our Porsche keys to the race, and we were speculating on whether this would be a tyre or a fuel defined race. Track temperatures held steady at 46 Celsius, which is 115 Fahrenheit. Still this absolutely enthralling battle at the front of the GTD field, which is keeping our attention coming out of Oak Tree down Madison Avenue at the moment. This is second, third and fourth being Patrick Gallagher for Turner, Duda Barrichello and Russell Ward, with Aaron Telitz actually barely a second further back. Very interesting to see the relative straight line performance. It looks like the Merc hasn't got the straight line performance of either the BMW or the Aston, although the Aston is in the draft of the BMW, but Russell closing in under braking there at the top of the roller coaster at turn 14, now falling down the hill to turn 17, and they're being caught. They are being caught by 6th DXDT Chevrolet Corvette, the number 36 blue fronted car. That's Mason Filippi, and Jake Walker having a great run for the Silver Bullet in 7th position for Gradient Racing. And into the pit lane, Jack Hawksworth from 9th in GTD Pro. This looks like full service, Arjuna Kankapati.
Full service, but no driver change. And the one thing, John, that I noticed is not much fuel needing to be packed into the car. They haven't burned through the full virtual energy tank, and a nice tidy pit stop for the Vassar Sullivan team to send the 14 out.
Yeah, that's interesting. That to me is, that's been predicated on driver time rather than anything else. Unless the tyres, the starting tyres that they were on have started to give up some of their performance. In the meantime, Sheena Monk, Myers Riley Motorsport, has gone behind the wall in the Ford Mustang GT3. I think it's fair to say that we can categorise this as not one of their better weekends, Ryan.
No, electrical issues is what I've seen reported on that. I was about to send a note in the chat about that as well. to let you know. But yeah, that seems to be the problem for them. As for the Vassar Sullivan car, I don't know that this is drive time dependent, because this is a GTD Pro class car. They only have a 10-minute minimum drive time. They were at the back of the class, though, John, and so this, to me, is a strategic roll of the dice here. They're coming in at the early end of the window, and they can then hopefully catch a yellow that would cycle them up to the front. So, to me, this is a car that was out of the mix on raw pace. You don't lose a lap by making a pit stop here, so you can take this undercut strategy, try to throw some fresh tires at it, and then hopefully a yellow falls into their hands as well.
And I presume, Arjuna Kankapati, that that's what's happening with Fred Vervish in the 65 Ford, as well as I saw another car dive for the pit lane. Was that Aaron Thielitz in the other Vassar Sullivan car? Yes, it was. Full service again, or is it just a two-tyre stop?
Looks like full service. At least the driver change is now complete, but actually a good mind, John. Vassar Sullivan, Lexus, thinking on your page. Left sides only, I believe, as they roll off and away. I'll get confirmation from the team in just a couple of moments. But first driver change, Benjamin Peterson out on track.
Interesting one, that, Ryan, isn't it? We will be looking for our BDO Nose Strategy Award. There's a ways to go yet and for the strategy to play out. Kind of got to make notes through these races, even the 2-hour 40-minute races, because what happens early on can be very interesting. So 45 minutes, that would be an hour and a half. You sort of, so that was 4 tyre stop, by the way, for Benjamin Pedersen before he went out. 45, another 45 would be an hour and 30, and then that would be 2 hours and 15, 2 hours and 20. It's not quite splitting it up in just a two-stop strategy. They've got to get these middle stints a little bit longer for these cars. As in comes Danny Formal from the head of the GTD field, and he's followed in by second and third. Russell Ward, he has gone around, I think. Yes, Russell Ward and Mason Filippi have gone round. Let's go to Arjuna.
And a hive of activity with driver changes for GTD. It's Trent Hinman that's going to jump into that Dex Imaging Wayne Taylor racing car. Looks like a driver change as well for the Heart of Racing as Tom Gamble gets in to replace Dudu Barrichello. Already off and away for the Dex Imaging Lamborghini, which led for part of last year's race before, of course, a big fire took them out. Race off a pit lane, it's close, but the Heart of Racing inches in front of Turner's BMW.
This is not an exact science, Ryan Marine, is it? As the Dex Imaging car comes out behind the Pro version of the Lexus RCF, which had stopped a lap before. So once again, we're seeing that getting a tyre change and getting out there is providing the performance advantage. But a 2-hour 40-minute race, when you're stopping at 40 or 45-minute races, that clearly isn't an easy run to the end from here, despite the fact that we had quite a long safety car intervention early in the race.
Well, I don't think that this is being limited here by an empty virtual energy tank. Everybody that is pitting with roughly 50%, a little bit under that still left in the tank. What they're seeing here is the window to make it on one stop opening up. Those that haven't pitted here are venturing into the danger zone because a yellow would bunch the field back up. Everybody that had pitted then would cycle ahead of the cars that have not pitted when they ultimately do under that yellow. That's the risk they're taking here by going long, but by going long also it means they'll have a shorter fill on their final stop potentially. It also opens up some strategic wiggle room for them in the second stint. They just have to be careful with the way that that they assess the risk here running long in this opening stint.
Robert Wiggins being installed into the 36 DXDT. Good to have him back in the IMSA paddock. He's such a positive bundle of positive energy, isn't he? And what a project this has been. Fantastically quick pit stop as Robert is now in the car, gets his belts up and he's down and away with a full service stop there as well. we'll give it another 5 minutes or so and see how this is all shaken out, to see who's done what to whom. Problem at the final corner for Corey Lewis, who's gone off in, he's lost his left front wheel. Left front wheel for Corey Lewis, that was his out lap. And Gradient Racing number 66, he's back into the pit lane. Is it the wheel or the... oh no, I tell a lie. I thought I saw that wheel had gone, but there's something not right. Ah no, the tyre's gone. The tyre's gone completely off that rim. That was, I'm fairly certain, his out lap. And so he's now going to drop off the lead lap after that car had been going so well early on. What a disappointment for Andres Levens and the rest of the Gradient team. They'll be very disappointed with that. It's the second time this weekend, Ryan, that we've seen somebody either lose a tyre or get a puncture coming down that area where they've been riding the curves on the way down to the hog pen and possibly flicked the car up in the air, and either catching the curb or landing the left front has popped the tyre off the bead, which it looks like that's what happened there.
I think you're right. Really a shame, because as you said, they were having a nice run up into 6th place at one point there in that opening stint, and frankly, they had not been anywhere close on pace so far this weekend, but evidently threw some things at that car overnight and had found some pace. Now, though, that was their second trip down the pit lane. You're exactly right. When we saw Lewis make his way back in, and we know that actually because Jake Walker, of course, had started the car, so they must have been in once for a driver change, and then had that tire issue that has caused them to come back to the pits, and this really has them on the back foot, effectively at the back of the GTD class, only ahead of cars that have spent time behind the wall, the Dragon Speed Corvette and the Mustang for Myers-Riley.
Yeah, I just wonder if the tyres weren't up to pressure, weren't up to temperature and therefore pressure, and just clipping the curb has, with a slightly under pressured tyre, particularly in these weather and this hot weather with the track temperature still well into triple digits, dropped a couple of degrees Celsius down to 111 Fahrenheit, still 88 Fahrenheit in the air, by the way. Let's find out from Jake Walker. He started that car and was running well. A very unusual incident for his teammate Corey Lewis at the end of his out lap.
Tell me, Jake, do you know what the issue was there that saw the tyre itself come off the wheel?
Yeah, you know, we went to a new set of tires, and unfortunately the left front debeaded. Luckily we were close enough to the pit lane where we could squeeze it in real quick and put on a new front.
Great qualifying effort from you, great opening stint as well. Have you found a little bit more in this car this weekend?
Yeah, definitely in qualifying we found a bit more. You know, I feel like the car was rolling. We're still learning the car. We're still, you know, figuring some stuff out. We were good on the first lap, got hit off track, fell back to, you know, close to second to last. Worked my way back up through the field. You know, now we're just getting a little bit unlucky. Not much we can do. Corey's in the car. I'm sure he'll make up plenty amount of spots, and we'll see how things shake out. You know, it's VIR. Anything can happen.
How hot is it behind the wheel today?
You know, this car has pretty good air conditioning. It's definitely still a little warm. Definitely sweating a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
There we go. Debeaded tyre. It was the Windward GT4 car, wasn't it, with Dan Arrow behind the wheel that happened to yesterday. It's stuck in my memory. Saw on the slow-mo replay the tyre debeading again early in its run. Hello to Grant Westman. Said, can you give a bit of love to Pat Gallagher with a clean, fair defensive drive for Turner Motorsport? Absolutely, did his job. Has handed that car over now as into the pit lane the best place GTD Pro Corvette and the remaining Corvette, with Nicky Katzberg getting out. He was followed into the pit lane by Neil Verhagen. So AO Racing and Harry King lead the race at the moment. Tom Gamble's just put in the fastest lap of the GTD race with a 46.7. It is still the Faf Motorsports Tamarario with a 46.6. that has the fastest race lap overall. Sandy Mitchell's just jumped into that car. So AO Racing going long in this race, with Harry King at the wheel. Lorenzo Petresi now in second overall and leading GTD. That's how it stands. As we come towards the hour, we'll do one of our VP in race updates. In fact, I tell you what, as the pits are finished all bar Harry, let's do a VP in race update now. AO Racing leading by 27 seconds, but needing that pit stop. Lorenzo Petresi for Conquest Racing hasn't made a pit stop. He has been down the pit lane, but that was for a penalty, as the Corvette number 4 has just gone off. Tommy Milner on his outlap, losing a bit of time at Oak Tree. Sandy Mitchell second in GT D Pro, but is the net leader, I suspect, in that category, with Ben Barker in second, 6.5 seconds behind. Then it's Valentin Os-Clos and the Carte Blanche, Aston Martin, with Frederick Verve. He's just waiting to see where the Paul Miller car cycles back into that. In GTD, Lorenzo has to stop. Trent Hinman, therefore, is the net leader with the Lamborghini Huracan for Wayne Taylor Racing, with Tom Gamble steaming along in second place and Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsport in third. That's your VP Racing in race update. So with the pit stops almost completed and an hour and 44 minutes still to go, plenty of racing going on for position here, and we've got the number 4 Corvette trying to stay ahead of the Aston Martin. That is the number 27 Heart of Racing car, isn't it? So that's not for class position, but it is for position on the circuit, and that's for 11th and 12th. And Tom Gamble is on a charge at the moment, trying to get back towards the Wayne Taylor Racing Lamborghini, Ryan.
Yeah, that's his goal. This is an interesting development here. The 4 car had a very long pit stop. They were in the pits for 1 minute and 9 seconds. Just about everybody else in GTD Pro was in for about 50 seconds or just under. So that's nearly 20 seconds long compared to some of the slower GTD Pro stops. I'm seeing a report that maybe they had problems with the door, and that could have cost them some of the time at least. But this drops one of the championship contenders. Remember, they qualified second and it closed to within 13 points in the GTD Pro Championship battle. Drops them way down the order. Tommy Milner now in 9th, 56 seconds behind his class leader.
Yeah, and this is a crucial part of the race for Tom Gamble. I suspect he'll feel the need to make some forward progress. I mean, that Corvette is not a slow car, but he certainly, as we stand in this tranche of the race, Ryan, he's got a quicker car underneath him, and he needs to make use of that performance advantage, particularly in relation to Trent Hinman, Wayne Taylor Racing, who is, as I said, the net leader. When Lorenzo Petresi pits, that car will cycle through to the lead. He's not that far behind. He's about 3 or 4 seconds behind his class leader, but at the moment he'll feel he's being held up, and there's some frustration, I think, just drifting into how he's driving that car at the minute.
Still turning pretty quick laps. Milner's last lap was a high 47, and that compares favorably to pretty much everybody in the GTD class that Gamble is comparing himself to. I take that back. There's some a little further down the order that are going quicker than that. So, yeah, this is an important time here for Tom. He'll want to get by Tommy as quickly as possible. This is where mixed class racing, even though these are all GT3 cars, but you've got a front runner in one class up against a car that, although it qualified well, hasn't maybe had the same pace here in the race in a different class, and it's having an effect on the two classes respectively.
Hello to Rai Campbell cheering on Rexy with my nearly 6-month-old Matilda, Tilly, already mad about motorsport. Bringing on the next generation. Excellent. That's responsible parenting. There, Rai, thank you. Bit of Rexy action. Going well, that number 77. Leading the motor race at the moment, but yet to make the first stop. An hour and 40 minutes to go. They're doing decent lap times, 48 flat for Harry King. I suspect that when they come in, they're easily now going to be able to get to the position where it will just be one more stop for them. Now, that's the same for everybody else. But you've got the Bedfordshire Bullet, Nick Tandy, to file into that. They've got track position by 28.5 seconds at the moment, and albeit on another car that hasn't made a trip down the pit lane for a pit stop, although it has for the drive-through penalty. That's Lorenzo Patrese. So they're playing the long game as well with the number 34 satin blue, white and black Ferrari. Really suits that colourway. It's not the colourway you would have said, oh, let's bang satin blue, white and silver on a Ferrari, but it really does work. Well done to whoever did that livery. Sandy Mitchell for Pfaff Motorsport, 33 seconds behind EO Racing's Harry King at the moment. Where will that car cycle back in when they do their first pit stop? That's the key answer as we come round right into the first hour. Your thoughts on the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR with 60 minutes on the clock as race time completed.
A couple of strategic notes. So the top two are both cars that, again, owe that pit stop. Harry King and company. Really, the Porsches across the board haven't been super fast this weekend, so I think this is them taking an alternate strategy. One thing that is in their favor here, all of their competition has burned essentially their short fill stop by pitting as soon as the window opened earlier. This then means that they will have a shorter stop later on in the race, and if that happens to come under full course yellow, that's a huge advantage for them potentially. For Patrese, later in GTD, that also owes a stop. They were forced into this alternate strategy in part because they were penalized for the contact on the opening lap that affected the Dragon Speed Corvette. So they're trying something different here, running long as well. Both of them are in the mid-20s in terms of percentage of energy left in their virtual tank, so they can go quite a ways longer here at this stage, and so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Just how deep into this stint can they go? And I guess the final point I would make would be, how powerful is the undercut? Well, Jack Hawksworth was last in GTD Pro. He was the first one to come in when the window cracked open, and he is now running 7th in the GTD Pro class, up a couple of spots. So that strategy has worked to get them a little bit of track position that they were unlikely to get on pure pace alone.
Yeah, and he's under 20 seconds behind the net leader in class, Sandy Mitchell. I think that's the other thing we should say. So he has closed up onto the guys ahead of him, as well as making up a couple of positions as well. Hello, Rafi. Waiting for a flight, doesn't say where, killing time by watching Rexy from a few minutes ago at IMSA Radio if you want to get in touch. Where are you watching and or listening from this Sunday afternoon, as it is here at VIR, early Sunday evening in UK and Europe, coming up to 6:15 in the UK. And Conquest Racing are in the pit lane from the lead of GTD, and this is not a great stop, Arjuna.
It's slow. It failed to go up on the air jack initially, and so a couple of seconds of hesitation. But fortunately, John, as we normally expect in pit stops, they are waiting on the virtual energy to be packed in, and so now waiting, off and away. Albert Costa goes in the Conquest Racing Ferrari.
Let's see where he cycles back in. Albert Costa. Great interview with Albert at the start of the race. in our Michelin Countdown to Green by Arjuna, referencing the untimely death of SEBRING, long-time Conquest driver at just 39 earlier on this week. And they're racing in his honour this weekend. Are they going to get the fairy tale finish for their, effectively their fallen comrade this weekend? Still waiting for AO Racing to come to the pit lane. Ryan, could it be that they are trying to get to a stage, and what have we got now? 95 minutes. They're into a spot now where they're almost there to go with just one more stop, aren't they? Once they put Tandy in, he can probably go with just one more stop.
Yeah, everybody has one stop. Well, everybody who has pitted already still has one stop. The question is, could they get to the point where they only make one stop? I don't think that's likely without a bunch of yellow. They're down at 22.5% in the virtual energy tank. And by the way, if you're interested in following along, this is available to everybody, IMSA.com/telemetry, and you can look at the same telemetry and energy data that I'm looking at right here. I did wonder, maybe were the top two trying to stretch this to get as close to the hour mark as possible. Let's see what they end up doing. That could be their gamble here today, but it would be quite a gamble, that's for sure. I don't think anybody was thinking that was a likely outcome coming into the race, but we did have a fairly lengthy yellow at the start of it, so maybe they think that the feathery foot of Harry King can save them enough to put them in the window, and then they'll count on Nick Tandy to feather the throttle the rest of the way.
They are losing a bit of time to the next two cars. Sandy Mitchell and Ben Barker both in the 47. Sandy in the low 47s in that car. Ben in the high 47s, 47.3, 47.8. It was a 48.8 for Rexy the last time around, but that was, in fairness, in traffic. I've been impressed actually at the pace that Harry's managed to keep up in that Porsche 911 GT3R with the tyres, on the tyres with which he started the race, of course. I think that's worth saying as well. The two fastest laps in the race still go to the two Lamborghinis. Oh no, as I say that, no, of course it wasn't. Tom Gamble reset the GTD 46.7 and a 46.6 for the Temerario that sits in second position. 30 seconds at the moment between AO Racing and Sandy Mitchell. The difference, so that's Harry and Sandy. The difference being, of course, that Harry King is on 32 lap old rubber, whereas Sandy Mitchell is on, what, 7 or 8 lap old rubber. And that will give him an advantage. 48.2 from Sandy last time around, 48.6 from Harry King. It will ebb and flow with the traffic, but it's sitting at 30 seconds at the moment, and that's something we've got to keep an eye on when we think about what pit stops are yet to be done. Got a couple of retirements official now. I think we knew this one, but Alexander Sims and the Corvette has been retired without even completing a lap. A little bit earlier on, the first official retirement actually went further into the race. That was Sheena Monk in the Myers Riley Motorsports Ford Mustang, the number 16 car. That car completed only 14 laps. We're on lap number 33 at the moment with an hour and a half still to go. Hello to James O'Donnell, using the time difference from VIR to the UK to his advantage, just back from what had been a gloriously sunny day at Donington Park, watching the touring cars and now watching VIR. And hello to John and Tara from South Carolina, watching the race live on the beach. Oh, how lovely. Go Rexy at IMSA Radio if you want to get in touch with us. Good to know we've got a lot of you tuned in, making the best of this late summer weather. 30 Celsius in the air here, is 86 Fahrenheit. Track temperature has started to fall. I'm really rather surprised at 20 minutes past 1 in the afternoon that it has started to come down. Gone down to 109 Fahrenheit. It was up at 118 at the start of the race, 43 Celsius. Charlie Brown says, how long does a pit stop take in VII? Is the minimum pit stop time? It's as quick as you can do it and as much fuel as you want to put in generally. That's how it is determined here. I'm having a long chat in Michelin Pilot Challenge whether the stint length would be fuel, VP fuel or Michelin tyres, and it seems that there's no general consensus here, with Harry King having been out on the track since the start of the race, so all 33 laps have been covered by him. Before that car comes into the pit lane, let's go to Vassar Sullivan Lexus Arjuna, where the driver database informed pit report with Aaron Telitz.
We've been trying to understand where Vassar Sullivan Lexus sits this weekend. Missed a lot of time in FP1, but you were quick late in the session in FP2. Can you tell us what you found?
Yeah, well, we lost so much time running in FP1, we just happened to have another set of tires for FP2, and we could go to them a lot later than other guys did. So maybe the track improved in FP2 and we found a bit of speed then, but yeah, it's going to be tough for us to stick up there in the top 4 or 5 cars right now. All those guys seem to have a lot of speed in it. Benjamin's doing a great job out there, running strong in the top 5, and hopefully we can just hit our marks and come home with a top 5 and go on to the next weekend.
How's the track compared to yesterday? Does it feel hotter or is it actually a bit better?
No, you know what? It feels very similar to yesterday. I actually didn't notice much. I thought it would have felt a lot worse with all the sun baking on it today. It was a little bit more cloudy yesterday until qualifying time, but yeah, it feels really similar. It hasn't had a ton of evolution like some tracks do over a weekend.
You guys made a bit of an undercut, came in early. Does that leave you vulnerable at the end of the stint, or is it hard enough to pass here that it's okay?
We didn't do that big of an undercut, maybe 1 or 2 laps, got Benjamin in, and then I'll get back in here for the last stint of the race.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yep, thanks guys.
It's been a heck of a race so far from Wayne Taylor Racing, Ryan, and Trent Hinman's just passed the 7th position BMW from Connor De Filippi. I mean, Connor saw him coming at turn 1, started to turn in. There was a tiny bit of contact there, actually, but, I mean, in point of fact, Connor's not racing him with the Nikita Johnson McLaren behind him. That's actually the car that he's fighting for position, but Trent Hinman now up to 7th overall and only 3 seconds or so behind Jack Hawkes within 6th. The Lamborghinis are strong. Oh, hold that thought. He's the leader, Harry King in the pit lane. Arjuna's a little bit further up the pit lane, so we'll keep an eye on the Rexy stop. They look like used Michelins going on the left-hand side. The man from the centre of Britain, Bedfordshire, hence the Bedfordshire Bullet. Nick Tandy getting into that car. Good stint from Harry King. Multiple Porsche Carrera Cup GB champion. Full 4 tyre stop, clean of the grille, literally of the grille in Rexy's case. And Nick Tandy climbs aboard. There's a little bit of tape on the left-hand side behind the driver's door, waiting for the VP Racing fuel. It's done. The car was already on the floor. It's down and away. Nick Tandy, a final tight of the belt as he releases the pit lane speed limit with his right thumb, heads out onto the track. He's got family honour to defend here as he goes into turn 1, and he's got the number 96 Liquid Moly BMW, Robbie Foley. This is a battle now for 12th position, 11th and 12th on the track, but that's not Nick's fight, and he sensibly backs out of it for the time being while he gets his Michelins up. I see he's got family honour to defend. The last Tandy who was driving was Felix. Just on the in-lap, it looks like there might have been a little bit of damage on the bottom of that car from Harry King as he was going up the snake. Felix Tandy, Nick's son, won the Kim Bolton karting festival in his age group and therefore gets the coveted K plate. That was a couple of weekends ago, not a million miles from where I normally am in the UK. So can it be another win for the Tandy family this weekend? I know Brittany, Eva and Felix will be listening. Hello to Heath Orlinger, say hello to me. I'm at turn 4, in between turn 4 and turn 5. First time here at VIR and absolutely loving it. Another one cheering for Rexy at IMSA Radio. I reckon that was about just under an hour and 15 minutes for Harry King. Let's have a word with the young Brit. He's out of Rexy.
It's not an easy weekend for AO Racing and the Porsches, but doing what you can in Rexy, extending the stint out for about an hour and 15 minutes. Was it hard to get the fuel mileage out of the Porsche?
Yeah, we went for a pretty aggressive fuel strategy saving. Hopefully we'd run into some yellows or something, but yeah, it didn't come our way. But you know, we're suffering with a bit of performance this weekend, so we've got to take some unnecessary risks and to try and keep ourselves in the fight. Of course, you know, the team was operating on the exact same level that we did last weekend in Road America, but the outcome of the performance is not quite the same. But yeah, we've got some pretty intelligent people behind the backgrounds here, so look, hopefully we can make some ground up.
Sounds like with a couple more cautions, you might actually be able to make it to the end then. Is that what I'm hearing?
Perhaps ask the smart people on the bench. I'm not too sure. I've just jumped out of the car, so yeah.
I'll go catch up with Chaz then. But first, I want to ask you about lap 1. What did you see heading up through the S's there?
Yeah, we have a pretty strict driver's briefing where we're told to leave space, and yeah, I left enough of a cart width, but I think perhaps the dirty air and the crest caught out the Corvette, and ultimately that launched him into the side of me, and then he's obviously rebounded off and had an accident, of course. My first question was he okay? Because that's the priority here, and yeah, it's a shame to see them fall out of the fight like that.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Another pretty honest assessment, I think, there of that Alexander Sims, Harry King first lap incident to BRDC members, British Racing Drivers Club members, who represent the UK sport so well, the BRDC. For many years, well, there's been an explosion of BRDC members coming to race in the US since I first came out here years ago. 1998 was my first time covering sports car races in the US. I've just realised that's well more than a quarter of a century ago. Goodness me, I'm coming up to nearly 30 years of covering sports car races here in the USA. There were 2 or 3, I think, of people like James Weaver and Andy Wallace who were enjoying themselves far too much to tell anybody else about it back in those days. And when the American Le Mans Series started, 1 or 2 more started to come out in '99 and 2000, and more than a smattering of Brits on this grid and out in the cars at the moment. Ben Barker is out there, Tom Gamble, Nick Tandy, going down to Matt Bell, Callum Eilert, Alexander Sims out of the race as well, and we just heard from Harry King. So the oldest drivers club in the world being well represented here at VIR this weekend. As I say, I thought that was pretty even-handed from both of the drivers involved in that nasty incident earlier on, Ryan.
It was, and it meshes with what the ultimate ruling from race control was that no further action was needed, I think was the official message. So that's the end of that. Heard from both sides, and most importantly, Alex is okay. That was a big hit for him, for sure. So we had the question from the listener, John, about how long a pit stop is, and we can say now what a full fill would be. That stop there for AO Racing would fall into that category.
Good point.
That was just over 1 minute. 1 minute, 1 second, .123. That was the amount of time pit in to pit out. So when you're talking about full fill, that's what you're looking at. And that's important because that's what basically everybody else is going to have to do on their final stop. The exception to that is the 77. And while they haven't caught the yellows that they were looking for to cut a pit stop out of the race entirely, one thing that could benefit them is, should a yellow come right as the window to make it on one more stop opens, everybody would pit under that yellow, and they would have a significantly shorter stop than everyone else. So that is still hanging out there as a strategic possibility for them. But the other thing is, regardless, they will have a shorter final stop, and that should help them make up a little bit of the ground that they lost by doing the full fill a few moments ago.
Yeah, and that's because they would need less VP racing
Correct.
fuel to get them to the end. We are at half distance in the race, so let's have a look at our Pelotti mid-race recap for the Michelin Genie Challenge at VIR. At the halfway point, 38 laps completed. We've had one intervention by the safety car. Right now, Sandy Mitchell leads by 7.3 seconds in the FAF Motorsports Lamborghini. 6 laps of caution early on from lap 1 to the start of lap 7. Only one car out of the pits. Now, this is important. Alexander Simpson, the Corvette. I said earlier on that the Myers Riley Motorsports Ford Mustang was out of the race. I misread that. That message had gone behind the wall, and Sheena Monk has just brought that car back out. So in our Pelotti mid-race recap, only the one retirement. So 22 cars still running at half distance. So now let's settle in to this middle portion of the race with 80 minutes remaining. I mean, what do you do if you are Nick Tandy and AO Racing? Well, what you do is you play the strategy. They've got a slightly more open window, haven't they? As you were saying, they came in, with about an hour and 25 to go, so that would be a little under 45 minutes for 2 stints, and they can do that. They could split it in half. They could extend the stint further into the race and hope for a yellow flag to jump in, or they could take the same pit stop as everybody else, as Ryan said, and when that pit stop, the final pit stop window opens, they could come in and take the advantage of having some VP fuel left in the tank. So strategically, they're in a pretty good position at the moment, aren't they?
To a degree. They don't have track position, and they don't really have the pace of the front runners, so their best bet on strategy has already passed them by, and that would have been additional yellows earlier. That would have helped them cut out a pit stop. That obviously looks unlikely at this stage, so we'll see. There are a few ways where they could still jump up the field, but again, they need some things to fall into place, and they made their bed pretty early. They committed to this gamble that nobody else did. You know it's a gamble because the rest of the field did something totally different, right? The fact that they're the only ones that did it, that says that it's probably not the preferred strategy, but there are mechanisms by which it could end up paying off. Elsewhere, though, this GTD fight is really, really interesting because Trent Hedman had been held up working through GTD Pro traffic. That's the leader in GTD. That had allowed Tom Gamble to close in. He had cut several seconds off of the lead,
Correct.
but now Gamble is dealing with that same traffic. Just a few moments ago, Nikita Johnson in the McLaren had an off and on. He and Gamble were pretty close together at the time. I've not seen any notification that there was contact, but I do have that kind of circled, wondering about that situation. That's allowed Gamble through, but he still needs to get through 2 more out-of-class cars if he's going to have any chance of running down Hidman here on pure pace.
And that was at the exit of the Oak Tree when Nikita Johnson went off in the number 59 McLaren. Good battle going on between Aston Martin and Ford Racing. Valentin Asclot in the white car blanche. Of course it's white as it's car blanche. The Aston Martin currently sitting in 4th position in GTD Pro, and ahead of it it's got the number 66 Corey Lewis Gradient Racing, the first car off the lead lap actually. That car after that de-beaded tyre coming down the hill to the hog pen earlier on. Good driving by Corey to get that, coax that car in the pit lane. Behind the white car is the almost all blue number 65. That is Corey Lewis, and that is a battle. I said that was 4th and 5th. It's 3rd and 4th actually, with Valentin Asclot in 3rd, Frederick Verveesch in 4th position. There's absolutely nothing between them. And the Mustang here might be doing his Ford stablemate a bit of a solid. Whether that's intentional or not, I'm sure it's not. And Corey Lewis is just running his own race. Ben Barker is in 2nd. He's another 4 seconds or so up the road. And then Sandy Mitchell is 8 seconds to the good leading GTD Pro. So it's Lamborghini, Ford Mustang, Aston Martin Vantage, Ford Mustang. Then 5 seconds further back from this battle that we're keeping an eye on is Jack Hawksworth. That's your top 5 overall. And in GTD Pro, in 6th position is Trent Hinman in the Lamborghini Huracan leading GTD. And he has got about, actually not that much, because he's got Conor De Filippi and Tommy Milner right behind him. And then it's Tom Gamble in the Aston Martin from Heart of Racing team. So it's only about a second and a half between those 4 cars. Third in GTD's Turner Motorsport, and he's about another 8 seconds further back in that run. That's a VP Racing update at the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It's the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR with an hour and 15 minutes remaining.
We're not that far away from thinking about final pit stops. 15 minutes, a little bit more than that away, and I would think that Jack Hawksworth in the 5th placed Vassar Sullivan Lexus would be likely the first one to come in. They were the first ones to come in during that first pit sequence that we had back about an hour or so ago at this point, and that undercut has helped them jump up through the field. They were at the back of GTD Pro at the time. They find themselves right in the middle now in 5th. We'll see if that's something they can continue to use here in the final run to the checkered flag. Should also note Nikita Johnson, we mentioned he had that off. I saw a report that maybe he got the left sides into a tire barrier. I believe you said it was in turn 12. That car just entered the pit lane now. And that looks like this could be another unfortunate end to what had been a promising weekend for RLL.
As we said earlier, slightly too many of those. It could have been a very different debut season for those 2 drivers and that team. Not a huge amount of movement in GTD Pro, only 10 cars in the field, of course, so 2 teams that have made up 5 positions. Ford amongst them. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, is what they always say. An hour and 13 and a half minutes to go. We need to think about the BDO No Strategy Award. If Tandy can save but keep on, what's he doing at the moment? 48.7. So he's lapping similarly to everybody at the sharp end of the field. That car doesn't have the pace. Side by side on the front straight across the line, it's Aston and Corvette, different categories, but fighting for room on track. It's the battle for 8th and 9th. The Aston has it, the Corvette wants it. Tom Campbell goes through, but then goes wide, and the Corvette takes it back. A little bit of a wobble coming out of turn 2 into turn 3. There's a flash from Gamble. Gamble's getting frustrated here, Ryan, because he's trying to chase down the car that's 2 ahead of Tommy. Tommy himself is trying to get on terms with Conor De Filippi because he's in a championship battle. Minus 23 to those guys ahead of him at the moment in the GTD Pro driver standings as they run. 24-22 for Neil Verhagen and Conor De Filippi in the number 1 BMW. Then Katzberg and Tommy Milner, Andrea Caldarelli and Sandy Mitchell, the number 9 car, leading this race at the moment, are only another 23 further back and just 1 ahead of Nick Tandy and Harry King. The top 4 within 47 points as they run. And at the moment, it's the Faf Lamborghini who was banking the most points out of those crew.
And it's an amazing turn of fortune for that Faf car because they came into this weekend 7th in the championship. They weren't even on my spreadsheet, John. They were so far down. But because so many of the front runners are having difficult days at the moment, and they're set to score maximum points as they run. Again, still a long way to go here, but this could be just a huge day for them to vault them into championship contention. Got the win at Road America. That brought them into the conversation, albeit on the fringes. But if they can back that up here, and especially if the likes of Connor De Filippi and the Paul Miller team, and Corvette Racing with the number 4 car, AO Racing being all the way down as they are in 8th at the moment. That's likely to change a little, but still, if things continue as they are, this absolutely puts the FAF Temerario right in the thick of the championship hunt with a couple of races to go.
That's a new take on something not being on the radar in terms of Sports League. They're not even on my spreadsheet.
That's right.
That is good. I can certainly hear Johnny Palmer saying that in the future as well. I'm going to feed that to him. Johnny may well be. Well, Johnny's enjoying himself in South Africa at the moment. So. What time is it there? 20 minutes to 8 o'clock in the Cape region. Hello to JP, if he's tuned in, watching and listening. I may suggest he's enjoying a rather good party out there or some sightseeing at the moment. Wherever you are in the world, let us know at IMSA Radio. BMW number 96. Under pressure at the moment from Rexy, who is under pressure from an AMG as well. This is the battle for 10th, 11th and 12th. 2 GTD cars and Nick Tandy in the GTD Pro. Do you know what? If Nick Tandy's not been held, he's dropped about 3/4 of a second on his lap time. I was going to say, sitting in behind that BMW, if he's getting decent lap times here, might not be the worst thing for Nick, because he will be saving a little bit of fuel here. But what he doesn't need to do is have Philip Ellis in the Winwood car, 4th in GTD, Tandy the meat in the sandwich, the GTD Pro meat in the GTD bread, if you will, because that's the battle for 3rd and 4th that Nick Tandy is right in the middle of at the moment. But Tandy's got his own race to run, and right now he needs to be making lap time.
Right there is exactly where Robbie Foley would like to keep Nick Tandy, though, because that's a buffer to Philip Ellis, and those are 2 championship aspirants in the GTD class. So this is great for Foley to have that buffer. Ellis will be desperate to get around the out-of-class car if at all possible, because that is a big pass if he were able to make it to get around the BMW. As far as the championship is concerned, so many wrinkles to this, even though it's GT only, and even though the 2 classes are the same GT3 platform, the fact that they mix together like this gives us so many permutations to work through.
I've always liked this event since it went GT only. I did enjoy seeing some of the prototypes around here. It was mildly bonkers, and I'm not even sure whether we could get the big prototypes around here now in any kind of safety. When you saw the ferocity of that accident that Alexander Sims had earlier on, with the additional downforce and cornering abilities of the current GTPs, kind of doesn't bear thinking about. But this Michelin GT Challenge here at VIR, always been popular with the fans. This, by anyone's standard, has got to be one of the biggest crowds we've ever seen here. Early on in the week, Friday, certainly yesterday, that's a huge crowd here. I was talking to people and swapping texts with people who were saying they'd not seen as many people here on a Friday before, never mind Saturday and Sunday. It's been good entertainment with support from VP Racing Challenge, Mustang Challenge, Ford Mustang Challenge, and of course we've still got a Whelen Mazda MX-5 race to close off the weekend. 10.5 hours of racing yesterday and a firework display to end it off. Yes, there was some natural fireworks as well, with an electric storm as well last night. But what a great effort. Kerrigan, Connie, take a bow. As always, you've put on a great event for us here at IMSA, and long may this continue. I remember my first time here. It was the last year of the American Le Mans Series, and it was my last American Le Mans Series race, actually, because I didn't get to Petit Le Mans that year because I had to go to the WEC race at Fuji, and what a waste of time that was. We had 16 racing laps, all behind the safety car, although there was one change of position because it was rained off. So I missed the last Petit Le Mans under the ALMS. So this was my last ALMS race here, which was my first time here. So that was the first time ALMS had raced here. And we had the old V-test program with all the manufacturers supplying cars for fast laps and course opening and closing laps, etc. And Jason Altsman, I used to help out, had a race license, still have a race license. I used to help out early in the week if there was the opportunity to do so. I got there, I think, on the Thursday, here on the Thursday, and Jason, who's Jensen Altsman's dad, threw me a set of keys to a Porsche 911 and said, "You've not seen the track before, you better go and have a lap." Oh, thanks very much. Didn't tell me it was a course clearing lap, so you had to drive within 2 cars lengths of the car ahead. His wife Ali, Jensen's mum, and who was the other driver? It'd be Patty Mayer, as was then, and then me trying to hang on to those two who were very rapid and excellent drivers on my first time around this track. Now, I've seen it on the telly. You can look at it on a map, a track map, but nothing prepares you for charging up turn 5, 6, 7 and over the brow at turn 8 and 9 when you can't see where the track goes and you've not been there before, and all you've got to do is hang on to the car ahead of you within 2 or 3 cars lengths, because if you don't, you're really stuck, because you're not going to know where to brake, where to turn in, or anything. So I was literally just following the car ahead. If it was never going to happen, if Patty or Ali had gone off, I'd have just followed them off. But what a baptism of fire that was to this track, and it has had my attention ever since. I ride motorcycles, and to think that they've raced motorcycles around here just fills me with, in equal amounts, awe and dread. Just extraordinary stuff. Right, we've got an hour and 3 minutes. We're coming down towards the pit stop window for last pit stops. Let's check in on some of the battles. 6th and 7th in GTD. Going across the line now, the Vassar Sullivan Lexus has Robert Wickens right in its wheel tracks at the moment in the DXDD Corvette. Robert thinks about diving to the inside using those hand controls for acceleration and for brake. Gets side by side as the Lexus went a little bit wide. Round the outside at turn 3 would be extraordinary. They're side by side. Robert decides that discretion is the better part of valor, but does the crisscross down to the inside for the left hook at turn 4. The Lexus just about holds on to us. What brilliant stuff. Michelin rubber being laid down by Benjamin Pedersen in the number 12 Lexus. Last time we'll see that car here in IMSA. The new Toyota replacement has been signed off, and it's been a long gestation period for that car, but we know now that it's coming to the Rolex 24 at Daytona next year, going through its final homologation bits and bobs. Well, that was an interesting little stanza there. Now let's go down to our driver database informed pit lane reporter. An update on one of the early front runners. Arjuna, what's happening to Conquest?
Well, remember, they had a penalty for contact on the opening lap with the Dragon Speed car that sat on pole position, John. But after being put on the back foot, what have they done? Put themselves slightly off strategy. They've been into pit lane for the final time today, potentially, as they gamble on the caution, potentially bringing them back into the mix.
Similar story here, right on the edge of the window, 1 lap further than the Conquest team. That's when Corvette Racing calls its championship front runner in. Their day went ajar with the last pit stop where they couldn't get the door shut. Cost them about 15 additional seconds in the pit lane and heaps of track position. So they come in early in the window here. It's going to be, it looks like, is that left sides only, just waiting on the fuel. And they send the car here to the end. That's the hope, at least, with just over an hour and 1 minute on the clock.
I tell you what, if that's left side only, that is brave. That is brave, because they had to wait. They needed every bit of fuel. Brand new sticker Michelin's going on to the Benjamin Pedersen Vassar Sullivan GTD car. Robert Wickens has followed him in. Robert will take that car to the end, and he's down and away. Is he going to be able to jump that car in the pit lane? Now, was that a short fuel, or have they played this perfectly? Track position was one of our Porsche keys to the race, and Wickens has gone through, made the pass in the pit lane. Track position so important here. So they've made what they are hoping is their last pit stop, and from the lead of the race, the Lamborghini Temerario is in the pit lane. He's Arjuna.
No driver change though, John. It is going to be Sandy Mitchell who is entrusted to bring this car to the checkered flag. It's scrubbed Michelin tyres that have gone onto the plaid shod Lamborghini Temerario, and now once again just packing this up with fuel, counting the seconds on the LED sign on the left side of the screen. They're waiting, they are waiting to send the Temerario off and away, searching for a second victory. Good pit stop for Faf.
Also into the pit lane, the all-white Carte Blanche Aston Martin. Valentin Asclo brought the car in. Marco Sorensen will take it to the end. They're going full service, 4 Michelin tyres. That's also the case for Connor De Filippi and Paul Miller Racing. Didn't see the driver change, doesn't mean it didn't happen, but there's 4 Michelin tyres going on to that car as well. Ben Barker then and Frederick Vervisch, 11.5 seconds between the two Fords, are left at the front of the field. 59.5 minutes on the clock as we head into, well, this is the closing stanza now. We're into the last chapter of this race. Are there any surprises? Also in the number 120 Porsche for Callum Eilert. Robbie Foley brings Turner Motorsport 96 BMW in as well. So here's Nick Tandy coming up again through the standings, but still 32 seconds off the lead in terms of the Ben Barker and Frederick Vervisch 2 cars at the head of the field. What will AO Racing do? They could come in now. They'd be on the very edge. I think maybe 2 or 3 laps if they're going to try and make an advantage of the fact that they need less fuel than everybody else. The 2 Fords out front, Frederick Vervisch is on his way to you, and so are the leading pair in GTD. Arjuna Kankapati.
I have to keep eyes everywhere, John, as Christopher Mies gets strapped into the number 65. He'd been sitting on the pit wall with the cool suit, getting him ready to go. Heart of Racing, it's going to be just tyres as Tom Gamble is entrusted to run to the end of this race. And behind them, the Mercedes Windward Racing crew get to work. Ford, number 65, they're done with tyres. They're now just waiting for fuel. Maybe a slight little bit of work maybe done at the rear end of that car as well. And let's keep an eye on now the blend back out of pit lane as off and away the 65 roars onto track. Meanwhile in GTD, Heart of Racing waiting to send the car. It's going to be close. Here comes the Wayne Taylor Lamborghini, inch by inch. The Huracan ends up in front.
Oh, it was so close as well. Almost enough for the Heart of Racing. We had some onboard looks earlier, and Tom Gamble very clearly was saving fuel, trying to shorten up that final pit stop, and it was nearly enough. But the crucial thing is there's no traffic now in between the 2 front runners in GTD, and immediately Gamble going on the attack, closing in into the brake zone there, chasing down Trent Hidman, make that Danny Formal, who's back in that car. A comparison of the pit stops between the 2 teams, nearly identical. Wayne Taylor Racing slightly slower by 0.7 of a second. They also had to do that driver change, so maybe that had a part to play in this. Oh my goodness. This is potentially massive, not just in the race, but think about the complexion of the championship here. If the 27 could make the pass, we had effectively written off their chances of a class win starting from 11th, but they've made their way up to 2nd, and now we have 56 minutes to try and get around the leader in class to take the lead of this race.
And would you like to be looking in your mirror and seeing
not even a little bit.
Tom Gamble sitting there for the next hour? No, me either. It's Formal versus Gamble versus Ellis, and there's 5 seconds as they left the pit lane. final of the pit stops for the Ford, and that's Ben Barker coming out. So Nick Tandy has cycled to the front but needs to make his final pit stop. 56 minutes to go. They will want to make sure that they are absolutely no problem on fuel in that Porsche, and they'll want to run it as full rich as they can. They haven't had all of the speed that they would have wanted, so they do not want to have to be saving fuel in the last part of this race. So I expect them to go 2 or 3 laps more, but I still think they'll get some advantage. I don't think it'll be huge, but I do think that it'll put them up that GTD Pro standing.
Here's something for you, John, a potential conundrum, and maybe something for Arjuna to chase as well. That pit stop for the 4 Corvettes, it seemed like there was a bit of a hang-up maybe with the fuel nozzle. I'm looking at the energy remaining for that car, and they only have 80% in the tank. Everybody else that has made a pit stop is at 93%, 90% or higher. 80% virtual energy to try and go 55 minutes. That could be cutting it a little bit close there. So just something to try and keep in mind, and maybe just to have Arjuna check on to make sure they got enough fuel in that stop that they're good to go to the end.
Well, let's go down to Arjuna now. We'll set him that task with the number 4 of Tommy Milner and the Corvette. Did they get all the fuel in? The sensors information that we've got would say no. Is 85% enough for that particular run? Not sure. Nick Tandy then has come back round to the front of the race for Porsche. They have strategized their ways to the front, if that's the correct terminology. BDO No Strategy Award to come for one award for both of the classes. Yep, it's combined here in the GT category. Let's take an update on that Corvette and Tommy Milner. Is he fueled to the end, or were they short, Arjuna?
A curt shake of the head, John. Did not get all the fuel they wanted in, and it was a technical issue. Good eyes, Ryan Marine, to spot that on the timing.
Now, what about Rexy and Nick Tandy? How much further do they want to go into this race? They are now, of course, in what our colleagues in IndyCar would call the danger zone. Hinch and the guys up there always talk about it. How much further do they need to go?
Well, I mean,
they
can make it. Oh, sorry.
All right, guys, I'm not exactly sure about that answer, but what I can tell you is that AO Racing on the pit wall, and I'm expecting Nick Tandy into pit lane in the next 2 laps.
Yeah, okay. And in fact, in this lap around, so here it is. This is the chance that they have taken. They've put themselves back in the mix. They've got a 20-second lead. It's a minute in the pit lane or slightly less. That will push them all the way back down the field. How much less than a minute is the question. Nick Tandy, are tyres going on that car? Yes, they are, at least on the left-hand side. Meantime, Phil, 4 scrubbed tyres. The car is down on the ground. Phil Ellis has got ahead of Robbie Foley in that battle that we were talking about. So Winward now up to 3rd position, 2.5 seconds behind Wayne Taylor Racing, with Tom Gamble in the lead now for Heart of Racing. Wayne Taylor in the Lamborghini Huracan, 3/4 of a second back now as Nick Tandy rejoins in 8th position, right behind Tommy Milner and right in front of Ben Barnicat. So they have made some ground, not a huge amount, but they have made some ground, and now Nick Tandy is fueled and Michelin tired to the end of the race. So Tom Gamble leads GTD. Phil Ellis is now behind 4 Mile in 3rd place, and Robbie Foley in 4th position. Plenty going on the track as the last pit stops played out there. Ryan Marine.
Well, this Gamble and not Gamble, but Tom Gamble. And Dudu Barrichello's story is remarkable. Coming from 11th on the grid, this is going to upset all kinds of statistics. Wow, for Mal at a huge moment into NASCAR Bend, and then off at the exit of it, which opened the door for Gamble to come through. That's about as easy of a pass as that car has made all day, and they've made quite a few of them. And that's all because of just the slightest little miscue for the Lamborghini driver. Opened the door wide open, and from 11th on the grid, John. Remember my stat about no one had won a race from outside of the top 2 rows since 2022? Well, that's about to get blown out of the water if Gamble can stay up front for the next 50 minutes.
Just under 51 minutes to go. Philip Ellis has been unleashed. They have fuel to the end. Clearly, he's just done a 47.2. Fastest man on the circuit last time around in either class. He's 2 seconds away and closing on 4 Mal, who is 9/10 away from Tom Gamble. That's your GT3 top 3 in reverse order. Let's go down to Ford. Dennis Alton is out of his car. We'll have a word with him thanks to Arjuna.
He was watching the pit stop as it all unfolded. Second on track now, 5.5 seconds back from the leader. Dennis Olsen, do you have what it takes to catch the Lamborghini Temerario in these closing stages?
Well, we do hope so, for sure. We definitely have a fantastic crew with us that really put us in this position, and pretty tough start here. But I think there is some chaos going on the track here now. But it's been great, and Ben did a mega stint there. We see the Lambo is struggling a bit at the end of the stint, so we're hoping that we can have an upper hand there, pitting a couple laps later in them, and we'll see what we can make out of it.
We talked to Fred during practice. He said that while the lap times were at the top, he wasn't sure if it was going to stay there. How's the car been performing as he brought the Ford Mustang GT3 Evo to VIR for the first time?
Oh, it's been good. We had 2 good test days here and really did proper preparation. It was even warmer than now, and I think that really you know, pays off now, especially in the race, trying to manage these tires. That has been the main issue, I would say, to keep them alive for a full stint. So that's been helpful, and definitely the Evo has made a big step up. It's a proper good car now, and I think that shows we can fight, we can battle, and we're pretty good on tires, so yeah, happy.
Did Ben say anything on the radio before that last stop?
Nope, pretty silent.
That's what you want, thank you.
Thank you.
Nick Tandy and Connor De Filippi both passed Ben Barnicle on that last lap, so Tandy now 7th. Yes, Connor De Filippi has gone through as well. So my timing screen hasn't quite caught up with that. Yes, it has. So it's Tandy in 7th, Connor De Filippi in 8th, Ben Barnicle in 9th. But race control are looking at an incident between Nick Tandy and Ben Barnicle on that last lap around. That would have been at, where was it? Turn 4, the left-hander, the left hook, just before you head up the snake there. So we'll keep you informed with that and see if there's anything to come out of it. Sandy Mitchell leads. Let's do a VP Racing update as we move into the last 48 minutes of this one. Start at the front of the field. FAF Motorsports, Lamborghini Temerario, 4.5 seconds to the good, but potentially maybe not with the performance all the way through the stint, as you've just heard. Ben Barker is set on chase mode in the Ford Mustang as now that was Ben Barnicle stopping to try and get rid of the grass out of the radiator. His temperatures must have been spiking there, and coming out of the Oak Tree corner at turn 12, he braked very hard indeed and got rid of the grass shavings that he picked up 2 laps ago at the same point of the track. Right, let me go back to where we were. So Faf from Ford, that was 4 seconds. Actually, it was at turn 4, wasn't it? That again, that side-by-side contact was racing room given there as well. That's going to be a tough one. Tandy's on the inside. He goes to the curb, slides across. Could he have done anything else? I'm not sure. And through goes the number 1 car as well. It just gone the other way, actually. And then, okay, so at turn 3, the Vassar Sullivan car had gone off on the grass. Tandy went back to the inside at turn 4, and then there was contact from the corner, middle of the corner, out with the Vassar Sullivan car on the outside. Pick the bones out of that one, race control, because you could make a case that the Vassar Sullivan car had made a pass off the track there on the previous corner. Again, I'm pleased I'm not there. Right, VP Racing update. Faf by now 3.9 seconds over Ford Racing. Lamborghini from Ford Mustang. McLaren another 14.5 seconds further back. Nikita Johnson, I'm sure, ruining the couple of offs that car has had, but they're still in with a shout. Chris Meeks right on the RLL Team McLaren tailpipes there in 4th position, 0.8 further back. Marco Sorensen for Aston Martin, another 4 seconds back from there. Tommy Milner, 2 seconds further back. Nick Tandy, 2 seconds further back, and Connor de Filippi 1 second further back. In GTD, is there's more side-by-side banging going on, and that's Danny Formal and Philip Ellis, and that was very robust from Formal, trying to hold on to his second place there with Philip Ellis. In GTD, Tom Gamble leads that by 1.1 seconds. Those two were absolutely together coming down the back straight, and there was contact. I'll get back to that in a moment. Robbie Foley in 4th for Turner Motorsport is another 6 seconds further back. The top 6 made up by Conquest, 2 seconds further back, who are 7 seconds ahead of Inception, who lead the entrance for the awards for next season. And Tandy, I paused like that because Tandy has got a drive-through penalty incident responsibility with car number 14 on that overtaking manoeuvre. Oh, he's not going to be happy. He's not going to be happy with that. So a slightly interrupted VP Racing in race update, but I hope you got the gist of it with 44 minutes still to go. The Aitken Award, by the way, I interrupted myself there. Fred Shandorf leading that for Inception Racing. Matt Bell is about 20 seconds further back in the 13 Autosport car. And don't forget, we did get the Myers Riley Motorsport Mustang. They are laps down, but Felipe Fraga will take that car to the end. Ryan Marine, the judges have announced their verdict. Drive-through for Nick Tandy down in the pit lane. He'll come through any second now after that side-by-side contact with the what car was it? I've forgotten again now. Oh yes, it was Ben Barnicat, and he's in the pit lane now to hold on to that at the left hook at turn number 5. Turn number 4.
It's a frustrating end to what has been a frustrating weekend, and that team was pretty desperate, I think, trying to grasp at straws to make the strategy work. If memory serves, they did something similar last year, and it did work out in their favor. But this year, they'll come up a little bit empty. Still a twist in the strategic tale to be played out in GTD Pro, because the McLaren that sits 3rd, they were forced to the pit lane before the window had really opened after that off-track moment for Nikita Johnson. So I believe they still owe a pit stop before this race is done, barring extensive safety car here. And then one other thing to note, during that VP in-race update you were doing, you made reference of that side-by-side battle with Danny Formal and Philip Ellis. Race Control has taken notice of that, and that too is under review. Both cars continued on, but there were some pretty tense moments going down the back straightaway heading toward Roller Coaster.
I think that's absolutely right. Just because neither car fell off the track, you don't penalise the consequences. They're at it again now, just coming out of Oak Tree, and Philip Ellis is right there. But this is 160, 170 miles an hour, and you can't be pulling across into people and doing that. If you get away with it, it's more by good luck than good judgment. And it's the sort of thing that winds drivers up, and this is what we saw at Road America. And I think Race Control are right to have a look at that. Now, they may still make a no call on it. They may feel it was 50-50. But those incidents still do have to be looked at. And in fact, it is a drive-through for 4 Mile, effectively for blocking. Moving in reaction, not leaving racing room, and 4 Mile has got the penalty. Now, I only saw the very back end of that, but as I said, just because somebody doesn't end up in the barriers and the car in a heap of pieces doesn't mean that you can't look at it and you can't penalise people with it. You don't penalise the consequences of these indiscretions. You have to penalise the act themselves to send the message, and I think that's race control doing exactly what was needed. And again, I haven't seen the full incident, but let's assume that what we will see in the fullness of time will bear out what race control have decided. I think that's spot on the money to keep the lead on some of these drivers getting frustrated and taking the law into their own hands, saying, oh, well, he banged into me last lap around and nothing happened, so I can bang into him this lap around. He squeezed me last lap around, I can squeeze him. And ultimately, at the last restart that caused all the trouble at Road America with the 2 leading cars, that's exactly what happened. That tempers got boiled over and people thought they knew where the line was and they didn't, and it got too dangerous. I think that's smart move by race control. So Philip Ellis then is moved into second place when that car comes in to the pit lane that's ahead of him. He is 4 seconds behind Tom Gamble, and he was putting in some really fast times before that. Meantime, in GTD, and in fact 4 Miles pulled in the pit lane, I had a couple of people saying it's not 4 Mile, he started the race. No, 4 Mile got into the car at the last pit stop. They put him back in the car at the last pit stop. So it is Danny 4 Mile in that car. We've been calling it that way since the pit stop, and that is indeed Danny 4 Mile's helmet in the Dex imaging number 45. Just lost a position, a few positions there, as you might imagine, as Giacomo Altoe goes by. That car laps down but back on the track. We've still only lost, as an official retirement, the Corvette number 3 from that first lap incident. Right, breathe everybody. We've got 40 minutes to go, 38 minutes to go. The penalty on Nick Tandy. He's down the inside at the left hook, clips the curb and moves into the number 14. 14 goes off the track and Barnicut nips through as well. It's the exact opposite, isn't it, of what happened before. Now, it goes back a bit further than that to the horseshoe on the same lap, where we got the number 1 BMW going through, and then there's contact between the BMW and Nick Tandy, which allows the number 14 to go through, the Lexus to go through, albeit he had to almost take to the grass to do that at turn 4. Now, that's interesting. Does that get looked at as well further back in that incident? Do they all deserve a penalty? Oh, race control. Honestly, my hat's off to you. If I was wearing a hat, I would doff it to you right now. At the front of the field, Sandy Mitchell leads by 4 seconds. Ben Barker hanging in there, matching them 10th for 10th at the moment. Then there's 18 seconds back to Nikita Johnson, who cannot go to the end. Johnson has been out there 10 laps longer than Ben Barker and 8 laps longer than Sandy Mitchell, and I don't think he's going to be able to make the end, certainly not at full speed. Then it's the Ford of Chris Meese, who I reckon is net 3rd position. He is effectively, if you want to call it, he's 24 seconds away from the leader, 20 seconds away from 2nd place. That's how it stands at the front of the field. 36.5 minutes to go, Ryan, and still plenty of racing left in the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR.
Yeah, and the battle in GTD is about to get really spicy because Philip Ellis has already taken a 1.5 seconds out of Tom Gamble's
Amazing.
lead since he was able to get clear of the 45 when it came in to serve that penalty. I mean, right away, opening sector of that first lap, he took away 0.4 of a second, then another 0.6 of a second, then about a half a second in sector 3, and he's continuing in that pursuit. So that quickly becomes a battle for the lead in the class, but that's also the top 2 in the championship coming into this weekend.
Yep.
So there's a whole lot at stake in that fight, not just about getting a race win here this weekend.
As it stands, it's pretty tight in the championship, as we documented at the start of the race. If it finished like that, what would the championship look like in GTD if it was Paul Miller ahead of Heart of Racing, rather, ahead of Windward Racing?
It would be 44 points the lead for Barrichello, as I have it calculated currently. And then with Foley now up into 3rd place with the penalty to Formal, he would be a further, Foley and Gallagher would be 70 points out of the championship lead by my math.
And if Phil Ellis gets the lead, how does that affect it? What's the point swing?
The point swing in that case would be a 16-point lead for Windward if they were able to get around. So it's massive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so yeah, it's all very well following behind and saying we're not losing too many points to the championship leaders, but it's on the line. The championship lead is on the line between these 2 cars in the next 35 minutes. Those 2 cars are on Ryan's spreadsheet, by the way.
They certainly
That's how
are.
he was able to do that so quickly. He's very, very clever with those spreadsheet things. Let's go down to the pit lane as we head towards the last half an hour. Head to the pit lane and hear from the man who started his car in 11th in GTD, leading the championship, Dudu Barrichello, his car leading at the moment, but in a scrap for the race win and the championship lead. Here's Arjuna.
You may have started slightly on the back foot, Dudu Barrichello, but right up front now, Tom Gamble's under pressure though. How's the Aston Martin from Heart of Racing been performing this weekend? Do you have what it takes to hold on up front?
Hopefully, I don't know. The car's been pretty good, you know, the whole year to be honest, and this track wasn't different. Unfortunately, we got the penalty yesterday, which obviously doesn't help, but my first stint was good fun, and Tom has been doing an amazing job like always, and hopefully we can hold the 57. They're always strong, you know, Philip Ellis and Russell Ward are very, very good drivers, so hopefully it's just a clean race at the end, and yeah, we'll see.
Obviously there was a penalty at the end of the last race that's kind of closed up the championship. Have you and the team had that discussion about what you need to now do differently on track, or is it basically the same approach as what you had at Road America?
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't really won a race, so we've been trying different approaches just to try and win a race. So this could be it, or it could not be it, but I guess we're going to see. And yeah, as I said, hopefully it's just a clean race at the end. We need to finish, we need the points, and yeah, I think we've been doing a good job, and hopefully it ends up that way.
Would you take a win, or would you take a championship with no wins?
Oh, you know, mate, I would honestly take a championship without any wins, but it's just a bit frustrating when we've come so close so many times. But yeah, I'll take a championship over a win.
Good luck.
Thanks.
The big trophy at the end of the year is a very, very pretty thing to take home. Looks good on the CV. Second in the championship with 1 race win or 2 race wins in the year versus the championship with no race wins. Nah, it's not even a consideration, Ryan, is it? Not for any racing driver.
No, but you can tell he said it through gritted teeth, right? Like, that's not really the way you want to win your championship. At the end of the day, yes, that's what you choose, but racing drivers love to win races and as much as just about anything else. So it's yeah, it's bittersweet, I suppose, in some ways. More sweet than bitter, but you'd certainly rather have at least 1 win as a feather in the cap en route to that championship. When he said that, though, I had to go back and double-check that. I thought, really? Seriously? They've been up front so much this year, but it's true. They were really close to a win at Sebring. It was, last lap, I think, and they were a very physical altercation in that battle for the lead that they lost out just barely, ended up with a 2nd-place finish. Also runners-up at Laguna Seca. but man, they have been so consistent this year. Road America is the one outlier where they finished 15th, had a 10th at Long Beach, but other than that, everything else has been 6th or better with 3 podiums up to this point in the season, and they've been very good in qualifying, which has been very crucial as well to padding that points lead.
I think you were saying earlier on in the weekend that up until yesterday, and this was only on account of them having overpowered on 2 of Dudu's laps, they hadn't qualified outside of the top 3, had they?
No, they had not. That's exactly right. Through the first 6 races, they had started no worse than 3rd, and that had only been done once before, 6 straight starting positions inside the top 3 in the history of the GTD class, which goes back quite a way. So pretty remarkable, and it looked like they were in line to keep that streak going, but lost out on their fastest lap because of the issue with that the torque sensor picked up too much power delivered beyond what was permitted, and so that lap got thrown out.
Now, we said keep an eye on Philip Ellis, and you were right to say that, because he's now caught the the leading Aston Martin in GTD, and that is the leader of that class. 6/10 across the line there for Philip Ellis. That AMG from Winwood Racing looks a very stable platform indeed, inside or outside, whenever we've seen it. Looks like Philip is able to place that car wherever he wants, and he's got a bit of traffic that might help him as well, and it's GTD traffic that is about to be lapped, believe it or not. Paul Miller Racing for Connor De Filippi, 7th place in GTD Pro, and Tommy Milner, I mean, they're on the same lap. I misspoke there. When I say lap, they're racing them, but the GTD leaders are catching 7th and 6th in the GTD Pro category. So those are quick cars, but at the moment, the 2 GTD cars, the Aston and the Mercedes, are faster. Down Madison Avenue at the moment, just gone under 30 minutes, half an hour to go in the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR. The latest round of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, live on IMSA Radio, IMSA TV, around the world on RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, and bringing you live coverage of every single IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car race. Also on Sirius XM channel 206 for all the races as well, and every session that we have on RS2 live across every race weekend, every session of the WSC. So now this is danger time for Tom Gamble. He's done whatever he needed to do. Gamble and Philip Ellis on the same fuel and pit stop strategy, so there's no big differential there. And down to who wants this more. Maybe should have put this in the Porsche keys to the race, Ryan, that it's this time of the year where a championship mentality, championship challenging teams and drivers. Do you have a championship mentality? Is it like the Hippocratic Oath where it's first do no harm to your championship challenge? Or do you go for it? And I don't know the answer to that. We've seen sometimes if you're racing someone who isn't in the championship fight, then you might be prepared to give up a position and say, well, that's not my battle right now in the season. But right here, right now, these 2 cars are literally battling for the lead of the championship, and whichever car of these 2 crosses the line first this weekend will lead the championship to Indianapolis.
It's a 60-point swing if those positions change hands. It's 30 points different between first and second. So right now, that would be the 27, specifically specifically Barrichello, who's the full season driver in that car, gaining 30 points on Philip Ellis and Russell Ward. But if it switches around, instead of gaining 30 points, they lose 30 points. So that's the 60-point swing I'm talking about if those positions change hands. And these 2 GTD front runners are significantly quicker than the GTD Pro cars that they're catching. They're lapping about a second or more faster each lap, and that is going to bring Gamble into the clutches of Philip Ellis. You talk about the champion mentality. Well, they are the back-to-back champions, reigning champions 2 years running in this class. Philip Ellis certainly knows what it takes to win one of these titles, and he also knows what it takes to steal a win away late in the going. He's done that a few times over the course of his career. Yep. I go back to Daytona earlier this year, the fight he had with Nicky Tim, which certainly got some headlines. You know he's going to put it on the line, and more often than not, he puts the car in the position that it takes to win the race.
A slightly battle-scarred Nikita Johnson in third position has now been out of the pits and burning Michelin rubber and VP Racing fuel for 50 minutes. He cannot get to the end. We've still got 26 minutes remaining. So the hard work from he and Max Esterson early on. There was one off-track excursion by Nikita, which slightly put a little bit of a dent in their plans, but they are holding that third position at the moment. Now, the leaders in that GTD category up to the top of the roller coaster, and here, right on the back of Connor De Filippi and Tommy Milner, they're scrapping themselves for the 6th and 7th positions overall and in GTD Pro, but I can't see them holding back here. They've got to try and go through. Gamble's got to try and make the position. It's not for any more points for him, because he's not taking points from that BMW. It's for overall position, but he's desperate to put a car between himself and the Aston Martin. Goes to the right-hand side into the horseshoe. That's compromised. He's entering to the corner, and here comes Philip Ellis. He hung back a little bit there, Ellis, to see if he could do something with the leader. You would have thought he'd have been right up his tailpipes, but that was really smart driving by Ellis. That's why he's sitting behind the wheel, and I'm standing in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre, and I am standing. I'm leaning forward, watching these pictures as you are on the far side of the circuit from us here in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre. Ellis, when is the moment? When is the right moment? And then if he does get past, of course, he's got the same problem, Ryan, of those two GTD Pro cars right ahead of him. This is not over. This could go all the way the next 24.5 minutes.
And let's not forget, it's not just the front runners in the GTD Championship we're watching, but it's also first and second in GTD Pro. The Corvette, second place coming into the weekend, and the BMW was the championship leader coming in. Now, much different circumstances. They're definitely not battling for a race win here, but both of the season-long championships could be affected by the way that the classes intermix here for the final 23 minutes.
As it stands right now, the teammate of Tom Gamble in that Aston Martin, Dudu Barrichello, who's raced with a number of different drivers this year, is 44 points ahead of Philip Ellis and Russell Ward. If those positions swap, that becomes a 16-point advantage to the 57 crew. That's how important this is at the front of the field. Absolutely exquisitely poised as we head into the last 20 minutes or thereabouts. It does seem as though even, down the inside into the horseshoe, here comes Ellis. He's had to pull up short there as the Aston was trying to go by. Meantime, the BMW's trying to go by the Corvette in that championship battle as well. It does seem as though the AMG does not, even in the draft, have the pace of the Aston Martin until right at the very end of the straight. It really takes a long time to get to VMAX, that car, not having perhaps quite as much torque from the exit of the corner. But now, how nimble is it? Isn't it brilliant to see these top drivers racing like this in cars that do have aero, but we can race them close together, lap after lap after lap. Ryan, the concentration here must be absolutely incredible from these drivers. Never mind the skill on shore here.
Oh, Gamble just barely dropping the right sides off the course, kicking up dust in the face of Ellis, who is in pursuit. These are top-level GT drivers, world-class, doing their thing on the big stage for all the marbles here. Yep, certainly so, as Ellis is there in the slipstream, John.
you know he's getting close because you see the rear wing of the Windward AMG car start to oscillate side by side when he's in that gap in the air through the top of turn 14 at the top of the roller coaster, now diving downhill. For the moment, there's a little bit of gap between these two battling in the front of GTD and the GTD Pro leader and second place in the championship. So these 4 cars represent first and second in both of the GTD championships, and they are on the same part of the track at the same time. The 2 Pro cars, the Corvette and the BMW, remember, battling for 6th and 7th. The Aston Martin and the AMG, the 2 dark blue and black cars, are battling for the race win and the lead of the championship. Again, it's a simple equation. Advanced mathematics and quadratic equations not required. Whichever one of these 2 cars wins the race, if they were to win the race, will lead the championship into Indianapolis. If Philip Ellis can do it, he will nick a 16-point lead. If it stays as it is, the Aston Martin team, at least due to Barrichello, who's been the full season driver, will have a 44-point lead. No major calculations required, and that's very nice for us in the Ford Racing Global Broadcast Centre, because we've got enough to deal with. And though I do commentate barefoot in most of these situations, I do not need to be counting on fingers and toes. Let's not forget that Sandy Mitchell is leading the GT Pro race by 3.3 seconds. Ben Parker's just closed that down about a half a second or thereabouts, hoping that he's got the better car at the end of the race. Still, Nikita Johnson continues to race on, getting close to an hour of green flag racing for Nikita Johnson in that McLaren with 20 minutes still to go. He can't. No, he can't. Let's not even think that. Chris Mace is in 4th position. He'll cross the line in a moment or two's time. There he goes, right in front of us. He's not that far ahead of Marco Sorensen, 2.5 seconds in fact, and they are 2.6 seconds ahead of this quartet going down into the horseshoe now. And I mean, who writes the scripts for IMSA? I've said this before down through the years, but who writes them? Championship leaders. Oh, down the inside at NASCAR 3 for the Paul Miller Racing BMW, but Connor can't get it done and drops back out again. I love to see the ebb and flow, Ryan, because each of these 4 different manufactured cars, all performance balance, of course, BOP. Oh, apparently that's a dirty word. Well, apparently not when you get racing like this. They are making similar lap times, but not necessarily doing it in exactly the same way. There are strengths and weaknesses that you can see around this VIR track quite clearly.
Yes, that's been on display. You talked about where Philip Ellis was finally closing in on the Aston. The Aston gets the initial jump, but maybe at the end of the straightaway, the Mercedes starts to close in. Certainly, traditionally at least, the Mercedes has been really good through tight, twisty stuff. One thing to keep in mind, though, we're not sure about Milner's fuel situation. They had the refueling issue, so that's one thing to track.
Oh, good point. Yeah, very good point. We think there might have been as much as 15% down side by side on the back straight. Philip Ellis goes to driver's left. He'll get the advantage of the left-hander, but then will lose out at turn 14. They're still side by side. Racing room given, I think. My goodness me, that was close to potential disaster, but these 2 drivers, I'm sure they know what they are doing. If we were to get onto the radio now, we would be told quite sternly, I'm sure, to leave them alone. Hello to Jerry Z in a soggy Florida. He's getting excited by this, as we all are. And Lee Jordan as well. Brilliant, brilliant. Send end to his day, he's saying. There's the Paul Miller car once again going down the inside at turn number 3. Tried it last time. Connor De Filippi pulls it off this time, but goes wide. He's off the track down the inside. This is what happened last time with Nick Tandy and the RCF, but this time Racing Room has been given, and the number 1 BMW goes up 1 spot and takes some championship points. Back again from Tommy Milner. Outstanding stuff. Meantime, the Aston Martin gets past Milner as well. Now, is this Milner struggling with fuel pickup at this stage with 16, 17 minutes to go? And this is terrible for Philip Ellis. This is an absolute disaster for Winward. Caught behind that Corvette, which got offline, got dirty tyres. Now he's got to try and power past on the back straight. Flashing of the lights. As every racing driver knows, that gives you at least 5 miles an hour at the end of the straight. I'm only joking. But this is go time for Ellis now. This is the championship lead on the line. He's got to clear that Corvette. He pulls out. He's going to come from a long way back here. And Milner, oh, that's classy from Milner. That is classy from Milner. Did not dispute that position to the GTD championship contender. I think that's an absolute brilliant piece of heads-up driving by Tommy Milner. He might be struggling, and he might even be pitting this time. No, he's not, but my goodness me. Take a bow, Tommy Milner. There is a man who knows how to race. As Bo Barfield says, race how you would like to be raced. Tommy Milner, the absolute epitome of that, Ryan.
Yeah, he is all class. That was on display there, no doubt about it. In terms of his fuel situation, he's down to 24.5% energy remaining. Let's put that in perspective. Connor De Filippi closer to 30%, so it's basically a 5% deficit. That was much closer to 10 at the beginning of the stint, so that gives you some idea as to how much fuel that he's been saving. Let's say so again, basically 25% left in the tank. We've got 15 minutes to go. So 25%, that's a quarter of a tank. 15 minutes, that's a quarter of an hour. I think he might be all right, but his problem has been that he's fighting with an arm tied behind his back. He can't go full push because of that issue they had putting fuel in the tank in the last pit stop.
How much has Sandy Mitchell got left, and how much has Ben Barker got left battling at the front of the field? Plenty is the answer for that. How much has Nikita Johnson got in third? Not enough, I think, is the answer to that, isn't it?
Yeah, 11%. Yeah, okay. So I don't see a way to square that circle, unfortunately, unless they catch a yellow. Now, that's one thing. A late yellow, we do laps under the safety car, all of a sudden, then maybe they could find a way to sneak home, but I think that's what they're relying on at this point. The other thing to remember, it's not a super long pit lane. You lose about 20 seconds coming down the pit lane, 21 seconds to be precise. Then you have to stop and put the fuel in. So Johnson, that would drop him where? Right about to 8th, I think. So still, that's not great. They would rather have that yellow that maybe would get them home.
Yeah, good point. Chris Meese has closed into under 5 seconds behind Nikita Johnson to put 2 Ford Mustang GT3s on the podium. Marco Sorensen another 3 seconds back. I tell you what, let's do a field rundown for you. Do a VP Racing in-race update. We'll start with GTD, where Tom Gamble and Philip Ellis are back at it again. Under a second between those two, 7th and 8th position. Robbie Foley, Turner Motorsport, is 14 seconds further back for Turner Motorsport in third. He's got a scrap on his hands as well as Albert Costa for Conquest Racing, fighting back, trying to get on the podium. How that would be. There'd be some tears there, wouldn't there, after the death of their teammate earlier on this week. Frederick Schandorf for Inception Racing is another 3 seconds further back, and the top 6 is made up by Danny Formal and Wayne Taylor Racing in the very fast Huracan, and he is 4.3 seconds further back. In the front of the field, Sandy Mitchell by spot on 4 seconds has held that from Ben Barker. Ben Barker has a couple of laps advantage on his tyre life and his fuel, and he was hoping in that 64 Ford Mustang that the Pfaff Motorsports Temerario just lost a little pace towards the end. They felt it wasn't as strong at the end of the stint as at the beginning. Then 1 minute and 22 seconds further back is Nikita Johnson, who is stretching for all he is worth, but he's somehow trying to keep Ford Racing's Chris Meese in the 65 car still 5 seconds behind. Not much difference in their lap times last time around. Meese is on the same pit stop strategy pretty much as Ben Barker and Sandy Mitchell, so he shouldn't have to be saving that much. Then Marco Sorensen for Car Blanche. He's again on the same sort of strategy as Sandy Mitchell. He's 40 seconds away from the lead and 4 seconds away from Chris Meads. Then Connor De Filippi, and that's your top 6 now, separated by 41 seconds. It is Sandy Mitchell that leads. 12 minutes to go. The battle for the lead in the championship between Tom Gamble and Philip Ellis in GTD continues. That's your VP Racing in race update.
Down to the final 11 minutes and 30 seconds, and it's heating up again at the front of GTD. The gap that Tom Gamble had built has disappeared down to just half a second, less than a car length through Oak Tree, and still some traffic to deal with in the form of Connor De Filippi, who, even though he's now clear of the Corvette, still doesn't quite have the same pace that the front runners in GTD have at their disposal.
Here comes Ellis on Madison Avenue, the back straight again. He's not quite close enough as they go into that little left-hand kink at 13 before they sweep right through the top of the roller coaster and then commit to that downhill fall through 15, 16 and 17. Clatter the curb on the left-hand side, getting airborne. Both the Aston and the AMG getting airborne there as they go down the hill. Now that's a really good exit onto the front straight from Ellis. He's creeping closer, but he just can't punch out of those medium and faster speed corners to get right into the gap in the air that's been made by the Aston. Good on the brakes though. Ellis closes in on the back of the 27. The AMG seems to have a better front end at the moment as Ellis can turn tighter, square the corner off, get on the power a little bit earlier. Back end of both of those cars, first and second in the GTD category, first and second in the GTD championship. Both of the rear ends of those cars looking a little squirrely as their drivers are wringing every last piece of grip and performance out of the Michelin tyres that they've had on for the better part of an hour now, around about 50 minutes since these cars stopped, or just under, up through the snake. Just a little lift going through turn number 9, now dropping down. Now Phil Ellis needs to be right under the rear wing coming out of Oak Tree. He closes up in the middle, gets on the power nice and early. That's good. The Aston Martin went a little bit wide here. Watch the back wing of the Windward car. If it starts oscillating left and right, it's just starting to do that now as he gets into the dirty air of the Aston ahead of it. It's not quite enough though. It's still not quite enough. He needs that wing to be wobbling about 100 yards further back down Madison Avenue. It's extraordinary that you see the aero working like that, Ryan, because of the hole in the air that's been made by that Aston in front of him.
Goes to show just how violent that dirty air can be. By the way, Nikita Johnson had to give up the ghost. That car in the pit lane now for a splash of fuel, carrying the scars of his off-track moment about an hour or so ago on the left-hand side of that Papaya McLaren. But, man, for Ellis and for Windward, this would be 3 straight wins. A couple of rounds ago, it looked like they were completely out of the championship hunt, but they rattled off wins, and now on the attack again, trying to make it 3 in a row.
Through turn, NASCAR turn 3, into the left hook at turn 4. Our junior Kanker party tells me it was 10 seconds of fuel for Nikita Johnson. It's dropped them down right now to 8th position, and ahead of them, Connor De Filippi in the 5th position. GTD Pro 5th overall. You could say this is the battle for 5th, but that is playing it down. It's the battle for the lead in the championship of GTD. It's the battle for the win at the top step on the box in GTD. The detritus, the marbles from the tyres, clear to see coming up through the snake there. It's pretty much a one groove track at that point of the circuit as the Michelin tyres have given their all today in this heat. Still, the track temperature's gone back up again now. 48 Celsius is 118 Fahrenheit, and it's 88 Fahrenheit in the air. That's 31 Celsius. It'll be a lot more than that in the cabin of these two cars as they head down Madison Avenue one more time. 7.5 minutes to go.
I know we need to contemplate our BDO No Strategy Award, and John, one thing that is crossing my mind possibly the 34 Conquest car, Albert Costa, they really undercut at the beginning of this stint, but they've got to stretch their fuel to make this pay off. Remember, they had the penalty for contact on the opening lap. It would be a great fight back to finish in 4th. That's where they run right now. Unfortunately, their telemetry is down, so I can't tell you if this strategy is going to work or not, but if it does pay off, that would be my nomination.
Side by side again, going into the horseshoe. There may have been a little rub there between the front splitter and the rear. Oh, down the inside into NASCAR. A huge late move from the AMG driver, Philip Ellis. He naturally runs wide, the side by side. Ellis has pushed off the road. That's going to be a penalty for the Aston Martin. That is what we saw earlier. Racing room not given. Now, for consistency, surely that's got to be a penalty for Aston Martin. That's disappointing. Definitely flashing of the lights from Philip Ellis. He didn't like that. He came from a long way back and he came late into NASCAR turn 3, drifts off the road. This is exactly what we saw with Tandy and the Lexus. Lexus had gone wide, so Ellis is where the Lexus was, and the 27 Aston is where Tandy was, and Tandy got a drive-through. And in fact, actually, the Aston didn't make the corner as well as Tandy did. Tandy was up on the curb on the inside there, and the Aston Martin was not making that corner. I think that's even more clear-cut than what we saw before. Again, it's not my decision, but you call it as you see it. And without that 57 car there, the Aston Martin was on the grass. And unfortunately, that has put an end to what we've been watching. There's no way the Aston Martin gave enough room on the outside there. And far from it being a little tap with the Porsche bouncing off the curb, that was half a car's width away from making the apex there. The Aston has dropped back. The Aston has dropped back. So is that redress? I think that might be redress. Trying to avoid the drive-through. Trying to avoid the drive-through penalty. If that's what they're doing, that's really clever in terms of the championship, because the drive-through would have put them further back down the field. Would it have lost them another place to Robbie Foley and Albert Costa? Possibly. So yeah, I think that's redress. I think that's a call to Tom Gamble from the pit wall saying let him through to avoid the drive-through penalty and losing more points. Now, is that enough to avoid the drive-through? No, it is not. It is not. Now, I think that's consistent from race control. I absolutely think that's consistent. I'll be honest, and I think that's even more of a penalty than it was for Tandy because of the fact that he wasn't up on the curb and made the corner. But consistency has been asked for. But for me, it looks like they're trying to redress that before they got the penalty, Ryan.
I think they did try. That was the intention there. It did appear that Gamble lifted off, but I don't believe there's anything in the rule book that says if you give that position up that you avoid the penalty. So it's, you know, it was very sporting of them to try. You could see the emotion on the face of Dudu Barrichello. He knows what this means. By giving up that spot, that cost them quite a bit of time. That could end up costing them an additional position here. I think he's going to fall in somewhere between Fred Schandorf and Danny Formal, 5th, 6th, something like that. We'll see here pretty soon once the drive-through is complete.
Well, here comes the Turner car across the line now, and it's not so far back for Albert Costa either. So they've gone through, also going through Frederick Schandorf. So I think they've dropped down to 5th position. 5th position, which might even get worse because Danny Formal is in there as well. The 59 is in there, the McLaren. That's not in that fight, is it? Yes, it is. I know, of course, it's a different class. So huge turnaround, 44-point advantage for Dudu Barrichello, has gone to him now, being 76 points behind as we head to Indianapolis, should it stay the same. In second place now, and in second place in the championship, 36 points behind Philip Ellis and Russell Ward, it's Robbie Foley and Patrick Gallagher. My goodness me, what a turnaround. 2 minutes to go. Sandy Mitchell still has his 4-second lead, as he seems to have had for the last hour of the race, quite frankly. And we have had drama again in the last 5 minutes here at VIR. Ryan Marie.
Wow, yeah, it's such a shame to have what was a captivating battle end this way. You hate to have race control have to play a part, but you're exactly right. They set the precedent early.
You're right.
And there really was no other choice but to make that call, even though the Heart of Racing tried to fix the situation themselves by giving that position back. Again, I go back to the fact that there's nothing in the rule book that says that means you're going to avoid a penalty. And it was worth the try, because had that worked, it would have been a second place instead of a fifth, and they would have been second in points, 16 back, but instead they find themselves third, and now 76 points out of the championship lead. Meanwhile, Albert Costa has had to pit. They came up 1 lap short. 1 lap short.
Let's go to the pit lane as the number 34 Conquest car comes in. Albert Costa, it's not going to be the fairy tale. They've come up 1 lap short. BDO knows strategy. One choice from either of the classes as Sandy Mitchell starts his last lap. Arjuna Kankapati.
I'll try and come up with something different to what you and Ryan might suggest. Had a chat here with one of the BDO team that's down on pit lane, and we don't often go for winners, John, but Faf in the Temerario have just played this race so cool, calm and collected and kept their nose out of trouble. It may not have been what many people expected coming into the weekend as well. I think that's my nomination for BDO strategy of today's race.
In terms of what's going on behind, 2 Fords, second and third, Carte Blanche up there as well. GTD's been a great battle. Winward Racing now up to 6th overall, by the way. Turner Motorsport doing Turner Motorsport things. But what about Inception as well? They've pulled them up set themselves up to 3rd overall when they didn't qualify particularly well. Right, Ryan, I'm putting you on the spot as we're on the last lap.
I think Inception now, with Costa having to pit, is the call. They're doing this with a bronze driver as part of their lineup, so they got that drive time knocked out, and in a mostly green race, the fact that they've been able to carry that lineup up to 3rd overall, big points for them in the Aiken Award. I think that would be my nomination.
Yeah, they've really pulled that out of the fire. So our BDO Knows Strategy Award going to the car that we think was going to finish in 3rd, Inception Racing's Ferrari. Didn't qualify where they wanted to. Not only do they stand on the GTD podium, but they take full points in the Bob Aiken Award as well. Congratulations to them. Good call as well for Faf Motorsports and the Lamborghini Temerario. They're going to take the race victory. And this, hang on, back-to-back victories for Faf Motorsports, back-to-back victories for Lamborghini Temerario. Like London buses, you don't see one for ages, and then 2 come along together, and it's Lamborghini at the double in the last 2 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship races for Faf. And that is an exceptional result that brings them into the championship conversation. Ben Barker's gone through in second for Ford. It'll be Ford second and third, but with a phenomenal drive in the second part of the race. Russell Ward kept himself out of trouble. He avoided the schmozzle at the beginning of the race, but he's had, oh, hang on, the 57 car's going slowly. Is he struggling for fuel? Or just taking it easy? He's certainly not taking as much curb as I thought he might do. This is Philip Ellis coming to the line. This might be tight on fuel here. He's not up to full speed. There's a Corvette behind him who's catching him, but he's going to make it. And Philip Ellis almost bumped out of the race on the back straight, almost bumped out of the race at the turn 4, comes through with a brilliant run, and he takes the victory in GTD, and he and Russell Ward take the championship lead. To the pit wall for a driver database informed pit lane report from the overall winners at FAF Motorsport.
It's back-to-back in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for the Lamborghini Temerario and for FAF Motorsports. Andrea, you put it on pole yesterday. Did you think you'd be able to control 2 hours and 40 minutes like you and the team have just done?
No, you never know with IMSA. They are great races, and you never know until the last 2 minutes. So, yeah, it was. I think we did an amazing job the whole weekend. So, you never think that you can manage for 2 hours 40. We were out there pushing. So, at the end it was a really great race for all the team, Sandy as well, which brought it back home. So, great day.
I never trust my own math, but it's looking like you might actually be in the championship fight now with 2 rounds left to go. Can you believe that?
I don't trust my math as well, so I cannot say. But yeah, that would be great. That would be awesome, especially at the first year of the car. That would be absolutely amazing.
Obviously, sad news that FAF won't be back in IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship competition next year. Have you and the team got some more motivation to go out on a high?
We have motivation since day one, and even though there was that news, we actually push even harder. And you know, there is a great bunch of guys here in the pit, and they definitely deserve more.
Congratulations! Go celebrate.
Thank you.
I don't think that, other than the pit stop cycle, obviously cycles, I don't think that car was headed in race conditions, was it, Ryan? Other than the pit stop cycles, we did see people cycle through who were on different strategies, but ultimately at the end of each pit stop cycle, the Temerario, the plaid Temerario, came back to the top. That's an extraordinary 2 hours and 40 minutes.
As we heard from Andrea, that is hard to do, and he even admitted that's more than they really dreamed of when they woke up this morning. They were expecting a tough fight, and frankly, they were the class of the field here. It started in qualifying. He really set the table for them nicely, but and then a couple of great, well, first the initial start, then the restart, built a nice gap, and then they just had to manage it the rest of the way. That it was a mostly green flag race, and so the pure pace of that car was able to tell, and they have that thing locked in right now. Great to see, considering where this car was at the start of the season. They've gone through a little bit of work in terms of the upgrade package with the brakes, but also the team has learned the car more. The drivers have learned the car more, and now it's a very competitive proposition, as evidenced by 2 straight wins.
Brilliant stuff. Let's remind you of the unofficial results. And that is FAF Motorsport taking their 2nd race victory in a row. That is actually as close to a perfect run as I've ever seen. Very tight between them and the eventual winners of the BDO No Strategy Award. The CrowdStrike Endurance Teamwork and Speed Award. We'll get the numbers for that and announce that for you on Wednesday in Midweek Motorsport. 2 Fords on the podium. Car Blanche getting another good victory in their first season in IMSA. Paul Miller Racing, great scrap from Neil Verhagen and from Conor De Filippi at the end. The 5th place finish from them will extend their championship lead over the Miller and Katzberg car, which finished 2 places behind. What about Philip Ellis and Russell Ward? Russell Ward doing his job, driving brilliantly at the start of the race, and then Phil Ellis had the pace, carved his way through the field and gave us some great entertainment along with, of course, the battling number 27, the Duda Barrichello car as well. Behind that, it was the Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsport. They're still 2nd in the championship, but lost a few points to the BMW number 1. Vassar Sullivan, in Pro Class at least, just didn't seem to have the pace this weekend. 2nd for Turner Motorsport, and they're now 2nd in the GTD Championship with their number 96 car. Inception Racing coming through the GTD field, playing the driver strategy and the green flag pit strategy, driver time strategy, green flag pit strategy perfectly to get themselves on the podium and take full points in the Bob Aitken Award as well. Outside the top 10, Tom Gamble in 11th for Harter Racing at the end after that hard-fought run. Nikita Johnson and RLLT McLaren 8th position in GTD Pro. That surely wasn't a fair result for the pace of that car early on. As we head down through that, Nick Tandy, Harry King, penalty spoiled their day when they were battling for a better position. See above for Conquest Racing as well. Gradient Racing up there earlier on, then lost that tyre in bizarre circumstances in 20th position. Giacomo Altoe and Dragon Speed in 21st position, and Myers Riley Motorsport back out from behind the wall. In fact, Gradient, Dragon Speed and Myers all finishing lap down, and Dragon Speed and Myers Riley Motorsport both with problems in that race. Let's head back down to the pit lane and get Sandy Mitchell from the winning Lamborghini Temerario. Just waiting for the confetti shots, and the Alexander Sims car obviously right at the back for Corvette Racing after that nasty first lap incident. Bryce Ward already congratulating the finishing driver, Philip Ellis. I said earlier on the weekend, Philip Ellis, if you met him for a drink and he was sitting in company, you would think he was just another fan, albeit a very fit-looking fan who works out at the gym a lot. Just magnificent stuff. Absolutely brilliant. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to wrap things up for our international TV audience. We've got Mazda to come in 25 minutes. We'll continue with the interviews in our Michelin post-race tech program on RS2 via IMSA Radio. We'll be back in 25 minutes to round off the track action in sound and vision, and back with the Michelin the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks' time. Got to say, that was the race we needed, wasn't it? After the shenanigans at the last race at Road America. We get the prototypes back next. Fingers crossed for that one. We'll see you there. Stay tuned for Michelin post-race techs.